When I'm not editing episodes, I'm usually listening to other podcasts. And late last year, I came across this podcast that talks about Philippine mythology in a light, educational, and entertaining way. So tonight, we are going to have a conversation with Anama and Ice of the Gods Must Be Crazy podcast. We talk about mythologies, haunted locations, British ghosts in Singapore, and a shamanic journey. Enjoy. So recently, may nag-pass sa akin ng podcast nyo. And yun, na-hook nga ako, sunod-sunod yung pinapakinggan ko. And what was refreshing was yun nga, your take on folklore and mythologies in the Philippines was lighter ang approach. Kasi usually, you would hear na, yung aswang, ganyan. Yung nuno sa bunso. So parang yung approach with the conversation and the light conversation was refreshing. And so, welcome to the podcast, Ice and Anama.
No worries. Hello. Great to be here.
Hello. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for accepting my invitation. Alam ko busy kayo. Sige, let's start with your friendship na lang. Chismoso lang ako talaga. So when did it start and when did you get to talking na, mahilig ka rin pala sa ganito?
So, Anama and I have been working together. How long na, Anama? Since I started in PNG.
When did you start in PNG?
So, I've been in PNG for 12 years.
So, we've known each other for 12 years.
Yeah, so we met each other in PNG. That's how we became friends. And then it just so happened that she moved to Singapore a few years ago, and then I moved like maybe 4 years ago.
Okay.
But we've been pretty close since the start. And then literally how the podcast started is really funny because there's one of those things where you just know you're so aligned and it just happens. So I was listening to, I'm obsessed with like the mythology podcast. Barcast, I think, right?
Yes.
And great storytelling, etc. And I was right after binge listening to a few episodes, I was looking for a Philippine mythology podcast. And there are a few here and there, right? But to your point, yeah, it's a bit like, very serious.
And scary.
Yes.
Or sometimes I found like I couldn't get the depth or the background behind a lot of the stories. And that's always, something I like looking for. So I messaged Anima literally. It was in the span of a week. I messaged Anima.
Okay.
Anima, bakit wala mga mythology podcasts on like Philippine mythology and whatever? And then we always go like, yeah, let's just make our own. And then she goes, yeah, game. And then we decide, and then we suddenly were like, okay, let's meet up on Friday. It was such a big thing after. And I'm not even kidding, within the span of 3 hours, we had the title of the podcast. We had a list of podcast episodes we wanted to do. We had like the whole
and topics, format
and all of that.
Yeah.
And it just happened. And like we launched like a month after. And it's one of those things where it's really surprising because typically when you think about making something like that, it takes you ages to think of all of the details and get started. But I think, I don't know, Anima, it just happened so fast, right? Parang nangyari lang siya.
I think it was also a confluence of like, I think it was like the perfect Venn diagram of where we are in our lives. Like me and Ice, we've known each other since like 12 years na. Pero like, before kasi, I was office-based. Tas yung first role niya was, palagi siya nasa field. Pero her computer was always in the office. Tas one time, I walked by her office and her teammate was a good friend of mine. Tapos sabi ko, kaninong laptop yan? Gusto ko yung wallpaper na damask. Kanino yan? Sabi niya, ayan yung bago naming teammate si Ice. I like her. Like, I didn't.
Anima was like, I think we're gonna be friends.
Yeah. And then we kept in touch and we have so many common intersections of interest. Like we're both really like Disney. We both love to karaoke. And then while Ice was listening to that podcast, I am obsessed with this podcast called My Favorite Murder. And I really, really love it. And they're very popular, but they're also very like, again, also, it's a comedy true crime podcast.
Yes.
So it's like very dark topics, very, very serious topics, but also like it's really a big interest for women especially.
Yes.
And I really love the way that they approach it from a light-hearted, curious manner. And so that's really the way that we thought of approaching the podcast. Sabi namin, parang what is our different take on it? And so we said, like, first objective is we want to learn more ourselves.
Yes.
Like, and so we want to, so a lot of times these podcasts are topics about that we know peripherally about, but then we'll do some research and then we're like, did you know this and that? And like, parang chismis na parang, I didn't know that and
Yes,
this and ganyan. And so our format is even like that, na parang one does a research on a topic, tapos the other person cannot read anything about it.
Okay,
and so,
okay.
Para it's always like very fresh and very, and very, chismis.
Chismis.
There's a moratorium. Like you're not like I wasn't allowed to research about Babaylan, for example. When she did
Okay.
the
That's
Babaylan.
mine.
Okay.
Like dibs.
May dibs talaga. May dibs sa topics.
Dibs kami talaga.
Pero even like the mood board when we were thinking about even the titles of the episodes, etc., right? Parang the way we were thinking about it was always like, if we were tabloid writers, but the subject of our tabloid was Philippine mythology and folklore, like what would be our take on it? So that's always like the angle. You're kind of trying, I don't want to say voyeuristic, but there's kind of that, like, you're trying to find like what are the interesting and sensational parts, and you bring it back down to earth. Right? You try to relate it to whatever people, our age and like within the zeitgeist already know. And I think that is by default what also makes it a bit more lighthearted, because you're relating it to pop culture. You're talking about like adobo and Gardo Versosa and stuff like that. Diba? So that's kind of, I think, how we found our niche.
And napansin ko, I think yun yung sa start. Usually sa start ng podcast merong a few seconds of yung juicy parts, di ba? Para at least ito yung interesting, ito yung chismis sa portion of it. And then I wait for that part. Okay, ito yung part na they would expound. You guys would expound on the portions. Especially and question ko is, nagulat lang ko kasi again, nasa surprise ako sa podcast nyo na usually kasi di ba parang it's either mythological creatures and folklore. And nagulat ako when you tackled binakot. Oo, binakot. And technically, wala masyadong paranormal, supernatural aspect dun. But it is part of our culture, diba? So that's why, again, so how do you, medyo parang shop talk pero how do you decide which episodes or which topics to talk about?
It's meron kaming parang pre-programmed, sorry, doon pumasok yung corporate thinking namin, like, right na,
marketing.
But when you plan out a PR, public relations,
yes.
Conversation calendar, right? So you always want to think of something that's topical for a certain time. So we have like several lenses by which we decide on a topic. So one lens is occasions. So for sure we have Undas episodes, we have Christmas episodes, we had Chinese New Year episodes, and so on. And then also Marvel movies. We really love Marvel movies. So pag may connect siya sa Marvel, sa topical Marvel talk. So I found your podcast because we did a Beringan episode.
Okay.
And I listened to your Beringan episode because in related to Wakanda.
Yes.
Related to Black Panther. So that's one lens by which we put it. But to be honest, it's like ano yung feel ko, like what like for me, like for the recently our newest one that we just put out was Babaylan nga. I've been putting it off for so long because it's such a big it's 4 episodes. Honestly, It's gonna be 4 episodes.
Okay.
But I didn't want to start it. Pero I watched the TikTok by this guy, creator Nick. I missed it. Nick Santos.
May glasses.
Nico Santos. And he's really...
Nico Valdez, you said, right?
Huh?
Am I getting it wrong?
Valdez?
Nico Valdez.
Basta may glasses, tas may goatee.
You know who you are.
Yes, Nico. We love you. But I love his TikToks, and he did a really interesting one on Babaylan. And so Saiko, no, you know what? Let's dive into it because it sort of like you can dive into it like bit by bit, piece by piece. And I think that's also one big thing is like sometimes mas madali mabibilis.
Totoo.
So
mga bite size talaga na
It's like Ice and I always talk about this thing na Big Magic. Have you heard of Big
No.
Magic? Ice baka gusto you wanna jump?
Yeah,
jump.
there's a book by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's called Big Magic, and she talks about like the creative process. And we love referencing it because based on our story, you can tell Anama and I are very like we're enablers of each other. So we're always like when I have an idea, do it. Yeah, write that story, do that thing. We should make a show, whatever. But because we're busy, like it never happened. So there's this principle in Big Magic where an idea, right, approaches several people, and they're waiting for that person to manifest that idea or bring it
And
to
to
life.
nurture the idea.
Mm-mm,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
It's like a pet. It's like a stray
Okay.
pet that you
Yeah,
take
so
it
it
in, you
it
nurture
wants to
it.
be manifested, right? So when an idea comes to you, let's say you have an idea for a novel, for example, and right, it's your choice as a creative to take action and to do that thing or not. So Elizabeth Gilbert, she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, right?
Mm.
She talked about this time when an idea came to her. She started doing research about this novel and everything, but life got in the way and she ended up not doing it. Years later, she met another writer. They hadn't talked about each other's stories or whatnot, but the writer told her she was writing a story. And then lo and behold, she found out that that was a story that she'd always meant to write, but that she couldn't bring herself to write anymore.
Mm-mm,
So
mm-mm.
her theory is like ideas want to be manifested, and if you don't act on it, it will approach a bunch of different
It'll
people,
find
Mm.
and
someone else.
Yes,
it will
yes.
find someone who will
Oo,
bring it to
oo.
life.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
we've seen it happen so many times, right? Remember, Anima, what was our idea?
We wanted, was it an episode or a book that we said we would write or something? Something like that. I've wanted to write a book for the longest time on like bringing like an action comic of like mythology, and it's come up. And then like but so like I want to write like a ton of things, and then we're always like we should do this and we should do that, and then we never
Yeah.
do it. And then all of a sudden we see it in the paper, like this was my exact idea, this was your exact idea.
So thank God we actually went ahead and
I
did the
know, right?
podcast.
Yeah.
I think it was
Or someone else
also,
would have.
I started the podcast kasi in the start of the pandemic, and it was
Okay.
so depressing. It was like the most depressing thing. It was like this was supposed to be helpful, but it wasn't, because it was called social distancing.
Okay.
It was me essentially just calling up my friends in different parts of the world and like recording a conversation like, oh, what's it like there, what's the pandemic like there in Italy and France and other places, and just catching up with each other. Tapos and then it was just depressing. It was just like, we can't go out, my
Yes, oo.
tito died. Sabi ko,
Oo nga.
This is at the start of the pandemic,
oo,
par.
very, very start talaga. So sabi ko, so I knew I had the technical capabilities to make a podcast. My husband is an artist. So he helps us with like, he bought me this nice microphone and
Okay.
stuff. And he hooked me up with all the software and things like that. So
Oh,
our
you
theme
put
song,
nakamute. Ayan,
minute
okay.
ko yung sarili ko. So yun,
Oo.
so we had that raw technical capability na, and so all we had to do, so it was easier for us to make the podcast na lang.
So, Ice, if I can ask, ano yung, when did it start for you? I mean, the interest in mythology and in folklore.
I think because as a kid, I just always loved fairy tales.
Okay.
So I'd always be like that kid borrowing all the books in the library.
Mm-mm.
And then I don't know if you're familiar with do you know the Andrew Lang fairy tale series? So there's
Ano?
a set of books. It's called the Andrew Lang like fairy tale books, and it's like the red fairy tale book, the yellow fairy book, the blue fairy book, the gray fairy book. It was just all these different kind of like collected like stories, and
Mm-mm.
fairy tales essentially are folk
Yes.
tales, right?
Yes.
At the end
Mm-mm.
of the day, folk tales and mythology from like European countries, especially. That's what we're exposed to. So dun siya nag-start. It's nothing like nothing
Experience.
extra special. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not
oo.
like a specific experience. I just love reading and I love stories, and fairy tales I always found fascinating. And then when I learned about mythology, I think that's where my kind of nerdy obsession kicked in, because I also love history.
Okay.
So I love learning about history. So when I started learning about the link between mythology and history, and it's always a reflection of the times, right? At the end of the day, we create stories that mirror the lives that we have, right? We don't create stories out of thin air. So parang naging ano siya, like it became like more of a nerdy interest from my end. Na parang I got really into like, okay, what was Greek mythology in relation to Greek life? What did like fairy tales from the Hans Christian Andersen and Grimm brothers, etc., tell us about the Middle Ages? So it became pure like history nerd trying to understand life in from the context of fairy tales. Because I collect a lot of useless trivia that I never use. We should really go to like trivia night.
No,
Um,
I'm also very good at trivia. We used to remember the CMK guys used to bring me a slick baon for for all these bar trivia
because
nights.
we hold a lot of like useless knowledge, right?
I'm also a 1992 National Bible Quiz Champion of the Philippines. So I'm just very proud of that
Oh, congratulations.
random
Congrats.
Bible fact.
Random Bible. Okay.
Bible talaga.
Bible talaga?
Oo, Bible quiz. Sorry, I interrupted.
It's okay. It's okay.
Which is a
Oh,
landmark of our
by the
podcast.
way,
Oo nga.
The Bible is just like mythology at the end of the day,
Yes, oo.
right? There's this like incredible book by Riza Aslan called Zealot, and he tries to imagine what the life of Jesus of Nazareth would be like based on historical accounts, right? So was there really like a Roman census at the time? Did you really have to go home, stuff like that? And what did it mean that he was like crucified? So he was basically like a rebel leader,
Mm-mm.
stuff like that. The Bible at the end of the day is just mythology, right?
Ako nag-deep dive, medyo conspiracy theories ang nag-deep dive ako kay
I love those.
The Fifth Kind, yung kanyang channel sa YouTube, The Fifth Kind. He is technically parang a minister and a Bible scholar. And then, siguro past 5 or 6 years ago, he recently connected for himself. Kasi he would go to ministries and he would explain parts of the Bible to people. And eventually linked na, ito, medyo stretch to baka for you guys. He linked na yung first part of the Bible was about our experience with ETs. Mm-mm. So, The Fifth Kind, yung, wait, hanapin ko yung So, just send ko yung link sa
This was my college paper in
really?
popular literature in UP before.
So what are you talking about aliens?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of findings. Like, for example, there's a lot of stories in the Bible where there were two angels and there was a ladder to go up to a platform, and you had to go up to the ladder to go to the platform. And the people were giants and the angels were giants.
And that's why the descriptions of angels are always so weird.
Effed up. Yeah.
And parang merong Bible scholars talaga siyang kausap who came to the same conclusion. Meron siyang mga kausap and they would break it down na hindi ko kaya i-retain yung knowledge, pero I mean, kung interested kayo, I mean, ako pasok sa area of interest mo, parang okay.
Yes.
Okay, may papasok tayong fan ng show nyo.
Oh, thank you.
Ayan. Isa siya sa mga nag-refer ng shows nyo.
Hi, JP.
And baka gusto nyo close yung video nyo kasi nakakakita siya.
Okay lang, JP, by the way,
Okay
apparently
lang.
dito sa bahay ko marami daw.
Haunted daw yung bahay ni Anama.
Oo,
according
yung
to
bahay
her
ko. Kasi
helper.
we moved here in the middle of the pandemic, and syempre at the start kailangan we needed a lot of space kasi
Yes.
my husband everyone works from home. We have a giant child with giant toys. So nakahanap kami ng house talaga, which is rare in Singapore, diba? And this is a 100-year-old house. So it was a house that was built before Singapore was even a country. It was built by the British, and it was like the first buildings in this area and everything. So it says 5 homes na I'll show you, like it's like old. Sorry, labada.
Okay lang.
It's high ceilings and everything. So nung ginugoogle ko yung place to read up about the neighborhood and stuff, kung talaga bang dito kami titira, ang unang lumalabas na prompt sa Google is like Townerville Haunted. Yun yung unang-una. And then pero pag click mo, walang articles.
Okay.
Well, of
ibig
course,
sabihin-
they would erase it.
Kinontrol na ni
Kinontrol na ni
Singapore.
government. Kinontrol na ni Singapore. But also, ibig sabihin, maraming, it's a search prompt
Yes.
that a lot of people do.
look for, yes.
So yun. So for me, it's always, and then yung yaya namin nakakakita. And then ako nung bata ako nakakita. And then yung baby namin paminsan-minsan nasa dining room kami. Tapos titingin siya sa window. Tapos, hello! Tapos walang tao.
Pero have you experienced anything there?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay,
A lot. In this house, a little, but not a ton. So for me, kasi I see, but I don't feel. Is that weird? Parang for me, they just look like regular things. So ever since I was a kid, it was like my mom before, like nasa terrace daw ako sa labas ng house ng lola ko. And then blah 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 blah, blah may kausap daw ako. Pagpasok ko sa house, sabi nila, "Sino kausap mo sa labas?" Sabi ko, "Si Tito Tinoy." Matagal nang patay si Tito Tinoy. Yung mga ganon. Or like, in our old office. So I'd be working, hinako. And yung marketing director namin noong time na yan, meron siyang daughter who would be like 8, 7, 8, na palagi niya dinadala sa office. So I was working intensely. Tapos, may takbo na bata. At sabi ko, "Excuse me, no, this is a workplace. Well, don't bring your child here." Sabi ko, nakakainis naman. Dinala ni Mohit yung anak niya dito. Sabi nila, naman nasa India si Mohit. So, I was like, oh no. Sabi ko, walang like bata na naka-pink na tumatakbo.
True enough, haunted daw yung floor by this like little 6-year-old kid. And then they run around and then she stays in this specific area
Desk.
where our friend sits down all the time.
Oo.
So we're just reminding her about it the other day.
Oh.
You know, I've always wondered, like, because when I was a kid daw, I had this like imaginary friend. Tapos talagang, I would like bring him everywhere. Tapos parang kunwari, pag may nangyayari, biniblame ko siya. Parang, kailangan dalhin natin. Tapos weird pa yung ninya. Ninya is like, some weird name like Dom Vix, which I invented as a kid. And I've always wondered if imaginary friends sometimes are, you know how they say kids see more than adults? So I've always wondered if that was the case because I only ever saw this imaginary friend in Pampanga, in the province.
Wait, you saw this imaginary friend?
When I was a kid, syempre hindi ko na naalala na erase na yung memory. Pero apparently, lagi ko daw siyang kalaro na nandun ako sa Pampanga. And it was always be at the back, near like the big mango tree. It was always there. And he would like, yeah. Pero he would never follow to Manila. So nainis daw ako pag hindi siya sumasama, parang gano'n.
Ano siya, bound siya doon.
Oo.
Nakapako siya sa mango tree.
So apparently, may nakausap kaming psychic, paranormal investigator, and he said na lahat ng mango trees, portal yan.
Lahat?
Aside from Balete, portal yan. Pero when you think portal naman, it is a gateway, di ba? It doesn't mean na palagi may lumalabas. It's just a gateway.
Daanan lang. Oo.
Daanan. Or minsan, yun nga, bahay talaga. So yun.
And apparently, nalalak mo rin naman, di ba? According to our Encanto episode, you can lock.
JP, nalalak nga ba? Hindi ko alam.
Yeah, yung LNKers direct, parang they'd take a nail and then papakuan nila yung puno.
Yeah. Orasyon, right? Ang tawag doon.
May orasyon,
May
yes.
pinapako siyang
So, ano mo siya so that it's closed in a sense. In Bali, so I was recently in Bali, and one of my friends, kasi we were considering like, do we buy a house or whatever? And then one of my friends who's Indonesian told me na parang, make sure that there's no banana tree beside the house. Like if there's a banana tree beside the house, don't go there. If there's a banana tree outside your room, change your room. And when you say it to the people in Bali, they'd understand. They'd be like, okay, we're gonna change your room. Because the banana tree is like a house for the spirit, basically. That's what they do.
So yeah, kasama yun sa list. Balete,
Mango,
banana, mango. Ano pa
balete.
isa? May isa pa. Akasha. Kaya, actually yun nga, yung naaliw ako sa mga, when we talk to practitioners, and they tell us, minsan yung may medicinal value yung leaves, depende sa leaf, depende sa type of tree, di ba? So, very interesting. And yun yung, that's something that I want to try to connect. And kaya, that's the reason I listen to other podcasts na, with other experiences, same as yours, na I try to see the connections between, kahit sa Southeast Asia lang, di ba? Kagaya nun sa banana tree sa Indonesia, di ba? That's very interesting. Na may ganun
and in
sila.
when in our anting episode, the liquid that comes from the heart of the banana
Yes.
tree at like a certain time of night or like
yes.
midnight of like a solstice, like something like
Full
very
moon,
very
something like
specific,
that.
full
Yes.
moon like that. So
Yes.
when you get that liquid, that is the anting for you. And so
That's
I
like a
mean,
Yuma, I think.
But you have to
No.
fight. Merong fight pa yon kasi other encantos are also waiting for it. May ganung
kailangan.
story. Oo.
kailangan anuhin mo.
Oo.
Ganda.
Focus level pala.
one thing that we were like, I said, we always try to figure out the why. Like, right, in a lot of times there are these stories. So, bakit kaya yun ang logic, right? And we don't know. We don't know for sure unless we talk to people in the past and ask them. And a lot of the writings, unfortunately, are always of like a third party white person who wrote it from a very, they're so weird, the kind of context.
Yes.
Excuse me, hindi kayo naliligo. Kayo ang weird. So
Yeah.
we always try to figure out like why. And one of the things that we found with like magical objects, magical things, a lot of it is intent and a lot of it is like ano yung value, but like it's not an intrinsic value. It's not like a diamond or a gold. It's the effort that you put in. It's the consequences of what you did to get the thing.
Because when you pour your intention there, right, a bit of your essence and a bit of your mana, right, necessarily like moves into the object and kind of helps you. It's an amplifier at the end of the day. Diba? It's just you concentrating your intention.
And belief. I think partly belief. Parang it is fueled by your intention and belief. Parang it doesn't work. Similar to yung stories ng iba na Saint Benedict na medallion. If you don't pray to it or you don't send your intentions to it, it does not work supposedly.
Yeah.
So Anima, sa Singapore, since ikaw mas nakakaramdam. Kamusta dyan pero question, you said that you see them but you don't feel them. So in general, you see spirits as normal people.
Yes, but they look a little different. So like they look like parang blurred around the edges, parang or like sometimes yung face nila hindi nagpo-focus for me. Pero malabo mata ko. So I don't know is it just me or is it, Pero dito sa Singapore konti lang talaga. As in konti lang. I mean here lang sa house namin probably, sometimes.
It's not surprising, diba? Because a lot of like the natural forests and habitats have been, it's all urban landscape now.
Yeah.
So unless you go to like a botanic garden where the virgin forests are.
Oo. Pero dito takot na takot sila. I mean, the Chinese in particular.
Yes.
Takot na takot sila. Pag ghost month dito,
Pag ghost
grabe
month.
lang talaga. Takot na takot talaga sila. Kaya konti lang yung Chinese kong kapitbahay. Takot na takot sila dito. Kasi like tipong maraming mga pag ghost month, huwag ka daw lilingon pag may tumawag ng pangalan mo. Paano kung
Ano kung police?
So hindi mo tatawagin yung friend mo ever pag ghost month? Paano na yun? Huwag kang titingin. Ganon. So, but takot na takot talaga sila dito. More so than in the Philippines. They don't seem to have a very... And I think it's probably because of our old belief of Anitos na they're part of us. They like, for me, yung wala akong nakikitang behavior dito na, pag may butterfly,
kamag-anak mo.
It's my kamag-anak. Ever since we moved here to this house, animals go into this house and like hang out and like die. Like we have frogs in my bathroom. On our first week, may bird na nag-fly in, tas tumambay lang dito sa work office ko. So may ipot-ipot yung frames ko here. Giant butterflies, giant mantises, big like dragonflies go on top of our Wi-Fi router and just like die. So, sabi ng yaya ko, my yaya is from Capiz.
Oh, okay. Aswang.
Rojas City.
Rojas pa talaga.
And her brother is apprenticed as mambabarang. So siya sabi niya, alam mo, this house is very lucky. Like really, really lucky. And like, and yesterday, so palagi siyang, that's lucky. Tapos palagi niyang nire-rub ng ginger yung anak ko, pag may sakit siya, ganyan. And she's always, but I like it because she has this attitude of always looking out for signs na, lucky yan. So yesterday, yung Zanzibar plant namin has a flower. And it's super, super rare. Sabi niya, alam mo, pag nag-flower ang Zanzibar plant, very lucky. Sa niya, baka manalo tayo sa loto, tumaya. Pero yun, rare sila dito and rare akong nakakakita dito.
Rare ka nakakita dyan. Pero, question, so, human spirits nakakita ka? Elementals ba? Or any other entities nakakakita ka? Or sense?
I don't know if they were an elemental, but the one that looked the most different for me was I was in Baguio, Teacher's Village. So, I don't know if you know CMLI. Did you ever do CMLI?
No, I didn't. But I'm aware of it. It's like this leadership training.
Okay.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's like 1 week, a couple of kids from your school, they go to Baguio, you live in Teacher's Village for a week, and there's competitions in debate, in writing, in drama, ganyan. And I was there for writing. And you stay, we were late, yung contingent ng school namin. So we rented a house na lang, na yung isang friend ko, yung isang classmate ko nakakita siya, ayaw nilang pumunta sa baba. Tapos everyone who would shower, ayaw nilang maligo mag-isa. So nakabukas yung pintuan, tapos may tao nakaupo. Tapos kailangan kakausapin mo yung tao the whole time na nakaano siya. Eko, for me personally, I didn't feel anything. So like, yung friends ko kasi para sa niya, ang dami-daming tao dito. Ganun siya, dami-dami. So ako parang, whatever, it's a house. So I go inside, I start showering. Tapos yung opposite nung side ng where I was standing, where the showers were, there were these windows that start probably this high and then like very, very high. So while I was showering, I saw a reflection of a man standing next to me who was much taller to me, but it was like an outline lang of a man. But like black siya, black. So I look at it, I look beside me, wala naman. And I look at it, andun pa rin. So sabi ko, baka naka-tilt yung window, may mama sa labas. Tapos may naninilip sa akin. So, po akong towel. Takbo ko. Tapos sumilip ako, walang tao. Tsaka hindi naka-tilt, hindi naka-open yung window actually. So it was just like totally there. Sabi ko, okay, so wala. So balik ako doon sa spot, shower ako. Andun pa rin siya sa reflection. Sabi ko, baka madumi lang yung bintana or something. Right? And then, so whatever, I just finish what I'm doing, ganyan. And then when I finished my bath, he was gone. The reflection was gone. And then afterwards, it was like dinner time and I was talking to my classmates. Like, ay na, may kasama akong naligo kanina. Sana sino? Akala na chismis. Sabi ko, this is man, ganyan. Tapos sabi nung friend ko na nakakakita, sabi niya, yan yung parang dating bantay. Pero hindi siya person. Like bantay as like a spirit bantay. Because he used to live in a tree or something. Ganon. So I think that's the most. At the time, I didn't know.
Like he's perving in the bathroom.
He was perving in the bathroom, essentially. Yeah. Or maybe that was where his tree was, and I was perving. I was taking off my clothes in his house. Isn't that like...
Ikaw yung inappropriate.
That's super rude.
Ako pala, what if someone went into your house and just took off all their clothes? And then, thought you were the perv.
Oo nga. So curious lang talaga, Ria. So less in Singapore talaga. Mas wala ka nakikitang for some reason. Oo nga. But yung reason sa, I think, belief ko and from the people I've talked to, kung bakit mas active supposedly ang spirits sa Hungry Ghost Month is because lahat, yung belief, they're putting thought into it and they're putting belief na, meron, active sila. So parang you're giving, sabi nga ng iba, parang you're giving energy to it. And yun nga, meron talagang nagmamanifest. Sa mga nakausap kami, meron isang podcast sa Singapore na kinausap ko rin and sila talagang takot na takot sila sa Hungry Ghost Month and yung
Pontianak.
Pontianak.
Oh, takot na takot sila doon.
Pontianak is like the lady, right? The pregnant.
No, it's the greasy man.
No, it's a parang white lady version na.
Yeah.
Na aswang-ish, di ba? Tama ba? Na aswang-ish?
Yeah.
Parang siyang aswang. And most of the time, pregnant lady din daw eh. Parang gano'n. Yeah. Actually, one of the interesting creatures we talked about was Malaysian/Singaporean in origin, right? That's the toyol. So, nung nag-Tiyanak episode kami, we featured like as a very similar kind of creature, which is the toyol. So it's very Malay, Singapore in origin. So they have like movies about the toyol. It's basically like a monster baby Shrek. So if you compare Shrek and Gollum, parang ganun yung vibe niya. And the idea is kind of, parang siyang Tiyanak, but the specialty of a toyol is like, pwede mo siyang i-train. Like, pwede mo siyang i-trap.
Tama, oo.
Tapos pwede mo siyang i-train. Parang siyang aswang pet. And then, magnanakaw siya for you. So when people would suddenly get super rich super fast, actually, some of the old people would be like, baka may toyol sila. And they're stealing from their neighbors. Parang ganyan. And because it was a baby, you can distract it with like toys or milk or whatever. Parang ganun siya.
Pag inisip mo, sorry, bigla na pag-usapan natin. If you think about it, parang, in a way, parang stories about duwende, no? Kasi, I mean, it's small. You can train it and it helps you with wealth.
But may weird baby aspect to it kasi parang they would like sometimes feed the toyol themselves. Either like feed them with blood from your toe, like they'll suck your toe, parang ganyan. You distract it with toys, or you'd feed it milk. So mas ano siya eh, may parang may baby aspect to it, which I'm not sure why
Yeah,
actually.
wow. When you get to travel, do you kind of bring it up with people you're with? Na parang, kagaya nun, you were in Bali, so, ano yung mga beliefs nyo sa Indonesia? Do you get to talk to other people about it?
Yeah, well, I tried to ask. So I was kind of like asking some of the locals there to explain some of the practices. Like, so why do they leave like offerings in the street on the floor, diba? On like they have like altars everywhere in the house. And it's really interesting. Like, actually, if you have time to deep dive into like Balinese or Javanese mythology, it is amazing because they have this entire belief system that's also it's kind of like meron silang mga holy directions. So if you will notice in Bali, there would be like where every northern facing side of a village would have like a black temple. Every facing side would have like a red temple. Parang ganyan. And even in the house, the most holy part is the northern part. And then the least holy part would be the southern part. So actually, the head of the household and the altar would be in the north and northeast parts. And then like places like the dirty kitchen or the pig pen would be in the south part. Because it's all related to their own kind of beliefs as well about what's holy. Parang ganyan. It's very interesting. And I think we actually share a lot of roots with like Malay slash Javanese culture, diba? Yeah.
Indian influence, a lot of Hindu influence also, and
Yeah. I was actually really hoping because we were recording the Babaylan episode while I was in Bali. Kaya lang di ako nakaabot. I really wanted to talk to a Balian, which is basically their version of a Babaylan.
Okay, oo.
But it's the exact same, not exact same, but the role and functions are the same. They're also they
Mediators.
historically also used to be women or trans people, right? But that's changed since then. But yeah,
I have a lot of, kasi syempre here Singapore, everyone's from
Yes,
somewhere else
yes.
usually, right? So I have a lot of friends who are like, I have this particular friend, si Desmond. He's from Barbados, and he grew up in the UK and in Canada, and then has lived here. So every time, like every single episode, he'll message me and he says, this is like this is like the Selkies in Ireland. These are like
yes.
the pixies who are tricking you, and this is like the trickster spider Anansi in the West Indies. So he'll always try to like say niya, kami rin,
Oo,
ganyan.
kami rin.
And then I have friends who are from Malaysia and Brunei, and they also like to like they pitch in like kami rin, this is what we have and these are our beliefs. So like the Pochanak, the Toyol, we got a lot of like confirmation
Oo.
then, and then like stories din na parang ako nung bata ako ganyan.
So, future episode ba yan? Can we wait for that episode na meron kayong connect niyo yung mga stories from the other people?
Yes, that was actually also in our communications plan.
Okay.
We said we'll tackle first the big stories, the big. For example, we haven't even done all the big five yet. So, which is all the five monsters. So, Manananggal, Kapre, we've done. Tiyanak, we've done. Tikbalang, we haven't done. And Duende, we haven't done. So, when we do the five, we'll start like branching out also, and looking into the stories of other regions and like other particularities of their region also.
And mas maganda especially pag merong first-hand or second-hand stories from them, diba? Like you said nga, ang ganda nun. I will
My
wait
dad,
for that.
ito, in-interview ko yung dad ko kasi nag-visit sila dito a couple of months ago. Tapos, like...
Saan kayo based pala, sorry?
My parents are from Batangas. Ano kami, Dimapis.
Batang. Okay.
So, but we're also in Cavite, we're also in Tagaytay, we're also in Laguna. But my dad's lolo and my dad's dad were all revolutionary soldiers, and my dad was also a soldier. So my lolo had an anting-anting that he said protected him from bullets and things like that. Not from alcohol, but anyways, so from bullets. And then my dad and all his brothers, most of his brothers were also soldiers. So when my lolo was dying, lahat sila nakaabang for my lolo's anting-anting. Hindi lingid sa kanilang kaalaman. My lolo already gave his anting-anting to my dad in the 80s when my dad went to the US for postgrad studies. Because my lolo was like, naku, delikado sa Amerika, ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. So he gave my dad the anting-anting. And he never told his brothers. And then for me, I wanted my dad to tell me like the whole story of the anting-anting and stuff. But he said, we didn't air it na rin kasi the power of the anting-anting naman is when it's a secret.
Yes.
When it's a secret and when no one really knows about it. Sabi niya, if I had told my brothers that I have it, it wouldn't have worked for me. And my dad has 36 years in the military and he's not, he could have died so many times. Pero he was, he's fine. And I don't know if that's the belief that made him careful or the belief that made him like dodge the bullets much better. Pero marami siyang swerte. Like for example, there were 3 airplane crashes that he could have died in. So one airplane crash kasi may LBM siya.
Okay.
Another airplane crash. So he the substitute pilot had to do it. The other crash was nagkaroon siya ng sore eyes. And the other crash was because he was hungover. So and everyone who were in that crash, the main pilot died. So for him, sabi niya, if I'm just like really lucky, or maybe it's something, or maybe whatnot, right? So yun yung belief niya. So hindi namin in-air yung first-hand account niya of like how the anting-anting was passed on, of like what were the words of his lolo to him, and then so sabi ko, sige, atin na lang yan. Kinip ko na lang for like posterity for my daughter eventually if she figures it out.
Totoo. But was your grandfather a healer of some sorts?
No, he was a soldier.
Okay.
He was a soldier. Mm-hmm. We talked to sorry, I'm gonna say it wrong again. Budget. So we talked to Budget early on in the early days, and he talked about how his family would get these anting-antings from Quiapo, and inside were the Lord's Prayer in like Latin-ish.
Latin, gibberish Latin, something like that.
And it was like nakabalot sa plastic, tas nakabalot sa pulang pouch.
Parang felt pouch. Yun nga tinatanong ko, parang may nakausap ko yung practitioner and tinatanong ko, bakit kailangan na sa red pouch pa? And again, it goes back to what you research rin, na parang intention and belief. Parang ganon. They would feel na if black pouch yan, parang mas hindi mag-work, mas hindi effective, I think, for them.
In the epics that we did recently, and also in the Anting-Anting episode we did recently, di ba, Ice, yung red is such a powerful like symbol. Like they would use red feathers, they would use red and then like nganga, betel nut. Pag yung the warriors would chew betel nut and spit it out on the ground, it is as if red blood of their enemies.
But if you think about it, red has always had an association with like vitality or essence, right? Just because it's a color of blood. Diba? I think that's one part of it. But you're right. I think, Nick, parang you have to kind of layer it with mysticism, right? To allow you to kind of engage in the belief. Diba? Versus something mundane. And that's why like big scary trees kind of give us, like by nature, even by themselves, diba? Parang there's a sense of wonder. How could something be this big and old and majestic?
Yeah.
And there must be something.
Yes.
It's hundreds of years old. Surely it must have powers to have survived this much.
This segues to my next question. Based on how you both answer, parang inanalyze, Pero, so, do both of you believe in the paranormal?
Yeah, for sure.
Si Ice mas hindi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I would think so.
I really believe in, but for me, it's more, I believe that there's something there that we cannot explain or we have not explained yet. I don't think it's as deliberate as people think it is, but I do think na the belief in something manifests it. I believe in people, for me.
To put it in like a literary device, probably we don't believe in hard magic systems.
Okay.
But we believe in soft magic systems.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
can you explain soft magic?
Not everything can be explained, but I don't think it's as concrete as, there are 15
para spells.
different realms
Yes.
and,
I think it's very for me the principles. I believe in all the principles, but I think the principles are a lot more ganito lang yung perfect example.
Okay.
For communion, 'di ba? Ang belief for communion is that dapat walang kasama si Jesus sa tiyan mo. So, hindi ka pwedeng kumain.
Hindi ko alam yan.
Oo, this my brother.
Alam mo, never ako sinabihan yan.
Ako rin.
My brother.
Baka sa inyo lang yan, pero sige, go.
Sa school siguro. My brother gave me so much grief about this. This is why for us in our school, our mass namin was like 11:30 para wala talagang laman yung tiyan mo. Pero syempre, gutom na gutom ako. Pero ako palagi akong hungry. So I would always like eat before mass, and my brother would get so mad at me because he said, you cannot eat 1 hour before mass kasi dapat walang kasama yung si Jesus sa tiyan mo. Pero sabi ko, pero yung communion, di ba sa 45? Like, if mass was 10, ang communion 10:45 pa. So, pwede pa akong kumain ng bago mag 11:45. Sabi niya, hindi. Dapat pag apak mo sa church, wala nang laman yung tiyan mo. Sabi ko, says who?
Oo, says who?
I know the Bible. I am Bible quiz champion of the Philippines. Walang nakasulat sa Bible na ganyan. Kasi lungalingan yan, di ba? So he could never give it a fact for me. But for me, I think I did have that belief of like, I believe the principle of like, dapat hindi ka distracted when you are in church and you should be completely present. And maybe hunger, in the same way as like people say that intermittent fasting makes them more focused, maybe the hunger keeps you a little bit focused. But then again, everyone digests food exactly different. I make like completely differently. So 1 hour shouldn't be like a hard and fast rule, right? So for me, yeah. So I believe in the principle of it. Like you should be focused in church. You should be present in church. I'm not, by the way, a practicing Catholic. But,
Okay, tatanong ko pa lang yun.
no, I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I'm like very knowledgeable.
Yeah. Bible champion nga eh.
Bible champion. Tsaka nung high school ako, kinonsider ko talaga magmadre. So talagang they would never have me. But, pero ano siya talaga. It's like, and I used to sing in a choir, in like a Jesuit choir. So, ano talaga siya. I'm like very knowledgeable of like the silliness of the church. Of like, this is ridiculous. Na, ganun. So, yeah. So, that's my long answer. Ice, ikaw, what do you believe in communion?
Oh, it's the same thing. Parang, I think at the end of the day, not everything can be explained by like rational, cold, hard facts. That's just the reality of it. And parang the search for like a rational explanation to everything is a bit futile. At the end of the day, as Anama said, I think we like to believe in the principle and the core of things. Like we talked about in our like what's it, death superstitions episode, right? Like last year. We talk about how parang sorry?
Shake it off.
Shake it off. Yeah.
Pagpag, oo.
So we talked about how Filipinos love ghost stories. And
yes.
And it for me, it's so much of daily life. Like it's so normal to have superstitions associated with the dead and to kind of just believe na parang, oh, you spoke someone's name and then their car honked or something, so they must be there. I think we want to believe that our loved ones who passed away are still with us, diba? So I think at the end of the day, I would argue most Filipinos have some belief of the supernatural, right? Probably in varying degrees, but it's always there. And yeah, parang there's just too much that's like unexplainable. That there must be some semblance of truth to all of the different stories. If it's such a universal experience, right?
Yes, it is. Yung weird observation ko, and again, from people I've talked to, lumalabas, people from, ayoko mag-generalize, pero people from provinces, they tend to accept the paranormal more. Meaning, kagaya nun, kasi we had a co-host na from Samar, and nung nilalabas yung episode, ako kasi anonymous ako eh. Hindi alam ng kamag-anak ko ginagawa ko to. So, kasi alam kong merong shame na may judgment na lalabas. Pero siya, when we went live, sabi niya, okay lang. Kung kamag-anak ko naman, naniniwala rin naman sila eh. So parang lumalabas, regional yung judgment, di ko alam. Kaya nun, we have a friend from, and parang may nangyari sa isang student. Part of the treatment, sa psychiatrist, part of the treatment, albularyo. Parang understood niya. Pero kung Manila ka, never mangyayari yun. Agad. Hindi agad-agad, di ba? So very interesting lang yung
Yeah. Pero di ba, Ice, you said something before about like what Jose Rizal said about the treatment of like paranormal diseases?
Yeah, I was trying to recall what it meant. Pero parang what his point was, a lot of illnesses are not only purely physiological. There's always some parapsychological side to the treatment. So when you look at the treatment, you have to tackle both the physiological part of it as well as the kind of psychological part of it. And that typically is where he associates the paranormal. Because di ba he stayed, where did he stay when he was exiled? Kapitan,
Mm.
right? And I think he encountered a lot of like the local doctors there.
Mhm.
But if you think about it, I think you're right. So it makes sense na parang people probably in more urbanized areas. I think it's two things. First is your exposure to the stories and
Yes.
superstitions and myths aren't as rich as people who would live in the province. Why? Because probably you're not living with your older relatives, right?
Mhm.
Probably you're just with your immediate family. So even the stories, they tend to not get passed down, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably an unfortunate part of it. And then to your point, in a lot of these like more rural areas, access to modern medicine and modern technology is not as widely available, right? So by default, because the local healer, let's say some supernatural part of it, but you would also know some more practical kind of like
Yeah.
health practices. They're the closest like source of information and source of like uh health service and technology
Mm.
that they
Mm.
have. So nare-reinforce din
Oo.
yung
True,
belief,
true.
diba?
Exposure, ano yan? Kumbaga, share a voice yan. Kung yun ang naririnig mo, yun ang totoo.
Oo.
We were talking about, again, it's not supernatural, pero the practice of binukot, di ba? Parang it survived for so long because the communities were just not penetrated by like urbanization or gentrification until like fairly recently they were forced to kind of go to the city
They're
and
surviving
get resources.
binukots.
Talaga?
Yes.
Hindi ko pa natapos episode. Pero saan, kailan siya nag-end? Kailan nag-end yung practice? Or they are still...
I would so it's less about that they completely stop the practice and it's more about access to education, and status of women have improved, so they now have the power to say no. Because it survived. The last surviving binukot was alive until, call it 2-3 years ago,
Yeah.
probably.
It's Caballero.
Yeah, Teresita Caballero, I think.
Tarsing.
And parang what they said eventually was, number one, kailangan meron kang resources to support the binukot. Kasi
So
kailangan
people
mayaman
could
Yes.
ka eh.
afford it na rin.
Diba?
Oo.
Especially in like, let's say an agricultural kind of community, you have to be able to afford to support someone who will not be part of the family workforce. Parang ganun, diba? That's one part of it, na it became not affordable. But at the same time, parang, alam mo yun, education became widely accessible. So actually, one of the elders, like an elder man in the village, said that he was disappointed because he felt like education got in the way, and so people don't want to continue the practice.
Education has made the women want to have rights.
Yeah. Sabi niya, hindi na nakikinig yung mga bata.
Hindi
Hindi
na,
na
hindi mo
nakikinig yung
na.
mga bata kasi meron ng like government or whatever. So mas nakikinig na sila doon. Parang ganun yung sabi niya.
I think it's also like for me then, I mean, if that's what you see, and if you see a demonstrated amount of success, and you don't see things like, you don't see a doctor. A lot of people in the rural areas don't start seeing a healthcare worker until they have their first child. And even then, it's how old will I be? Like, or probably, unfortunately, maraming under 18. Pero that's the women. Paano yung men? So, they don't go see the healthcare workers. They don't need supplements or whatnot or bakuna. So it's really very limited. However, again, this is my whole life. I believe in humans and the power of humans. It's because I also work in pharmaceutical industry. The amount of clinical evidence that supports the power of belief and the power of placebo. Like there's this recent study that just came out that if people just think they had painkillers, they will feel less pain if they were given painkillers. And then there was this another related study kasi before that said na Tylenol or like paracetamols can heal heartbreak, but also it makes you less sympathetic. Like if someone's getting hurt, I will feel it too. But if I take a paracetamol, I don't feel as bad for you.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Talagang
very robust.
measured study. Oo.
So that is with an actual drug that I take.
Yeah.
Now, if you put it into that drug of like, you just think you got a painkiller, all the effects are the same. I feel less pain and I'm less empathetic. So there's a real chemical thing that is happening in the mind. I don't think it's magic. I think it's just like science we haven't discovered
Unexplained,
yet.
yes.
It's a real physical thing that if you believe you had painkillers, if you don't receive painkillers chemically, your body creates painkillers that mimic exactly the same events of a paracetamol that you
Yes.
get. So I do think that and again, plants, herbs have so many medicinal properties that we are 90% of all modern medicines today have herbal origins. Only 10% of modern medicines today are completely synthetic. 90% lahat
Yes.
galing plants
Oo.
or animals.
Okay. Oo.
But mostly plants, So kung may vegan dyan na nagpaparacetamol, sorry. Sorry to the vegans. But yeah, so there is something there. There is fact there. There is truth to the herb lore. And I think we just haven't, sabi nga ni Thor, sa Thor movie is magic is just something that science hasn't discovered yet. Like to people who haven't heard of science, it does seem like magic.
Magic,
you
yeah.
know?
We talked to this, kakatapos ka edit kasi, we talked to this biochemist in the States. And yun, nakaka-experience siya. And he has dreams where he is in different worlds. He has dreams of his mom, talking to his mom who passed away. Tapos nakikita niya rin na nasa spaceship yung mom niya. Anyway, so tinatanong ko siya, how do you reconcile that? Given na you are a scientist. So sabi niya, given the facts, sabi niya, I realize that there are things that science cannot explain yet. Sabi niya. Diba? Kasi, 100 years back, if you look at what we're doing now, diba, it would seem like magic. Diba? When you mentioned nga na intention and yung, technically it's manifestation. We talked to this exorcist. Sa kanya nag-clear sa akin yung whole concept of manifesting your intention and your emotion nga. He was exorcising this girl and parang 12 hours na and nothing happened. Nothing's happening. So he just sat down and thought to himself, how am I going to solve this? So he manifested in his mind, okay, in my mind, I am tying this girl down. Her hands. Kasi nakatali pero nakaka-move pa rin. So in his mind, he did that. And then, the girl who was possessed shouted, get this out of my hands. Let me free. And then he realized, wait, if that happened, then maybe my thoughts did manifest. And he did the same for the feet. Tapos nakatulong na sa kanya yun. And yun yung learning niya doon na parang, okay, we can, whatever we think or we want to manifest, it happens in that realm or whatever realm that is.
Yeah.
In that side. So,
Yeah,
so same.
you're plugged in.
Yeah, you're plugged in, di ba? So same, I think nagka-experiment yung isang Japanese, I forgot ko ano yung name niya. Pero he experimented on plants. Parang, he had 3 plants. One he would not talk to. The other one he would say nice things to. The other one, di ba? And may manifestation yung negative, yung positive,
Yes.
di ba?
Yeah. It works on cheese too. There was this experiment where there was this guy making different kinds of cheeses, and then he would talk to each cheese differently. And then the cheese...
Less
the
mold?
Cheese that... No, well, I think it's going to have mold
Okay.
anyways. But the cheese that he was like all positive about and lovely about, it was a beautiful cheese. It was a wonderful, fragrant, fully evolved cheese. And the one that he talked meanly to, it rotted. But everything else was the same.
It reminds me of do you remember that German scientist who sorry, this is super dirty.
Sige lang.
The German scientist who discovered benzene, and the way that he discovered benzene, Kekule, something like that.
Yeah.
The way he discovered benzene was he had a dream of the Ouroboros, its tail.
Yeah.
And that's how he got the idea of like, oh, like the carbon atoms are all like in a circle or whatever.
But it's also that thing of when your brain is relaxed. So like I took a manifestation masterclass with Rob Rubin. the thing about manifestation is it's not 100% you putting your will out
Yeah.
and it happening. It's also you tapping into like time is a flat circle, right? Time is something that is actually
At
existing
the same time.
all
Yeah, at
at
the
the
same time.
same time.
Yes. Yes.
Everything is
Yeah.
happening all at the same time, all at once. And manifestation also can put you in a state where you reach towards the future and you pick something up from that. Could it be an or and your brain doesn't necessarily know what that is, right? It could be like an image, it could be like a word, a feeling, a location. And that gives you then the instinct of like, oh, Ouroboros, it's that thing,
Yeah.
and
It's the idea of frequency and getting yourself to the frequency. Ano, it reminds me of the shamanic journey I did. Do you remember?
yes. She
I
took a
did
Jaman. Okay, you tell them I have to go pee. Wait lang.
Wait, ayahuasca?
I did no, I didn't take ayahuasca, so it wasn't that intense. Pero parang I went on this retreat and then they were doing like the drums and then the sounding
The
things. I forgot what it's called.
Tibetan. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I had no clue what to expect, right? I'm like, okay, whatever, let's just do this. I wanted to be open. And um so they made us like lie down and then they were doing like hypnotic drumming and whatever. And then they were just like, okay, imagine yourself like your body is like so imagine you kind of rising up from your body, you're observing your body from the top, etc. And I went on this like whole entire journey that I could have never imagined like myself, right? So parang I imagine myself like going into like this distant island, just near a volcano or something like that. And they guide you kasi.
Yes.
So they'll tell you like what to look for or whatever. So ako naman, okay, fine. I was listening to like the teacher. And then she goes like, okay, look for like the light at like the distance at the end of the path, parang ganon. So I was looking for the light. And I remember I got goosebumps kasi when it happened, I was looking for a light. I was like, where's the light? Where's the light? And there's like a campfire. Like in my mind, there was like a campfire with like a group of people in the side. And they were kind of calling over to me. And I was like, no, 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 I can't go there. I have to look for the light. Parang ganyan. And then the teacher suddenly said, okay, at the end of the light, you should see a campfire with a group of people. And I was just like, wait, nalagpasan ko na. So in my journey, I went back. And then when I went back, like the group of people were there and there was this guy in a funny hat and he was like welcoming me. And he was like, oh, muntik mo na kaming malagpasan, sabi niya. Parang you almost missed us. So I was like, sorry, akala ko I have to go there.
In your mind, when that person talked to you, sorry nasimingit ako. Baka mawala eh. In Tagalog or?
I don't know.
Okay.
Actually, that's the thing. There was no like, I don't know. I just understood what he was saying.
Oo.
He wasn't necessarily speaking in English or Filipino. I'm not sure. Basta nagkaintindihan lang kami. Pero na-freak out talaga ako pagbalik ko kasi talagang nilagpasan ko sila pero sila pala yung pupuntahan ko dapat. Like the note of the teacher came after. Tapos when I joined them in the kind of campfire, there were different sets of people. So my lolo was there. My lola was there. There was like this like kind of like very quiet, stoic like guy in the corner. Nakaupo lang siyang ganyan. Meron siyang coat. And he was like dark skin. Nakaupo lang siya. Tahimik lang siya. And then may mga anito sa side. And then the person in the weird hat said na, oh, welcome, you're here. Nandito lahat ng mga ano. Basically, he said, these were all of my ancestors. So he goes, yo, this is your grandpa, grandma. These are our ancestors. He pointed to the anitos. And then he pointed to the guy in like the coat and like the dark skin. And he's like, my last name is Laksamana. He goes, this is the first Laksamana. Parang ganyan. So I met like my first of my ancestors or whatever. And then around the campfire, there was also like a skeletal eagle. And then there was like a white tiger. And parang we were talking for a bit in that shamanic journey. And then we ended up dancing around like the campfire. And then afterwards, when we had to go, like the animals like went with me to like go. So I received some message from my ancestors, whatever, after that. And then when I shared it with the group, so afterwards when you wake up, and then I shared it with the group, the teacher said that, oh my God, this is such an archetypal shamanic journey. Like this is literally all of your ancestors lined up, and they're all kind of like, it's the same message na parang, the core of the message that I was receiving was like, everything that you want to pass has already happened.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of like, you don't have to do anything, you just have to receive it, and it's just gonna happen for you. Parang ganun. And I'm not even kidding. For a good, let's say, week after, I kept feeling the eagle and the tiger with me.
Yes.
Like the eagle was here and the tiger was at my feet wherever I was going and whatever I was doing. Parang ganun. So yeah, that was really interesting.
Do you believe in spirit guides? I mean, it doesn't have to be. Kasi, I guess, your opinion on spirit guides.
I do believe in spirit guides. Yes, for sure. I think that they're always there, but you have to be open to accessing them. And I think that people, because you have your day-to-day concerns, right? Your mind is not always in a place where you will listen to them or sense them. And that's why it kind of takes that kind of like guided journeying or something to get you to a place where you can open yourself up to them. I mean, in the end, that's what people do when they meditate. They just don't know that that's what they're doing.
Usually again, ako, wala naman ako gini-goosebumps lang ako, pero wala naman ako nararamdaman na spirit guide.
Baka malamig lang dyan sa inyo.
Oo nga, huwag kayo magpakita. Pero parang lumalabas, yung dinidisregard natin before na synchronicities or yung mga things na, may nag-appear na several times nag-appear yung word na to, nag-catch yung attention mo pero wala naman. So parang sinasabi yun yung communication eh. So I'm not sure if you have experiences similar to that after the shamanic journey.
Yeah, so I mean, I always see it's happening now. It's 2:22. I always see the Yeah, I always see the angel numbers.
Angel number.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ako 1, 2, 3, 4 palagi.
Talaga?
Yeah. For me, it's 11, 11, 22, 22. Typical.
So, yung 1, 2, 3, 4, ano yung significance for you, Anima?
Ang 1, 2, 3, 4, syempre I look it up.
Yes.
You Google what it means, right? It usually means you're on the right track.
Okay.
It's like what you're doing. I think each angel numbers mean different things because like my other friend, Tet, also always sees 11, 11. And only 11,
Yes,
11. No other numbers. I only ever see 1, 2, 3, 4. So for her, it means something else. It means like a decision needs to be made or something like that. I forget. I'm not entirely sure. But when I looked up 1, 2, 3, 4, it's always like you're on the right track, which is very helpful for me because I'm like super always riddled with anxiety. So I'm always like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing like, you know?
Yeah, sometimes it's just there as reassurance, right? Like it's not necessarily something new or different you have to do. Depends.
Yeah. I mean, I tried doing tarot. Like I have several decks next to my bedside, and like sometimes at night when I'm like particularly anxious, I try to like, tap into it, and I'm like, wala naman, hindi naman nakakatulong, hindi naman siya helpful eh. So, and then every time, like for me, my biggest push-pull in my decision-making life is I just want to be told what to do. Like, just tell me na. But then the hardest part of it is like that realization that parang, it's up to you. It's you decide and you can make things happen, which is the whole thing about manifestation, training. Ngayon, sabi ko, and then like, and I've been fairly good at it. Like, I'm fairly successful at like last year I was manifesting like a new job and blah, blah, blah. And now I have a new job.
But you also hired witches, right? Why don't you tell them about
I hire witches.
So she bought a spell on Etsy.
Yeah.
You can buy spells on Etsy.
Yeah, you can buy spells on Etsy. My helper was I've done binding myself. I've done binding rituals.
Binding, paano binding? Sorry.
So my husband was dated a girl. He also dated a girl at the same time as me.
Okay.
Shocker.
Okay.
But he picked me, and then they didn't, continue. And then the girl, was crazy, and she would stalk me. She was stalking me. She was stalking my friend. She was calling my work. She was calling his work. And nireport na namin siya sa police. Nireport na namin siya sa ganyan. And then she would still it wouldn't stop. And so one time I was in Bangkok. And I was like, and it's usually when I'm like by myself, do I get these flashes of like, I can do something. So I was in Bangkok. And then I was like, I should bind her. Like I should, and binding is not I will stop you from doing things, but it's just like stop doing harm from me and my own and from my family. And so it's a matter of like, you get a white piece, again, it's like these spells, right? There's a white piece of paper, you write their name, you wrap it in something like a ribbon or hair or a fabric or a string or a thread, and then you say a prayer 3 times.
Did
And
you
then
get something from her?
I didn't, but I had her name. But the thing is, it's like her name. It could not have. Maybe it wasn't her real name, you know. So I just had the image of her and the intention. Oh no, I printed out the police report.
Okay.
It has to be like
Basta may
something
connection
that
to
is
her.
like-
Oo.
may connection to her talaga. So yun, so that's what I did. And then I bound her, and then it didn't disappear right away, but like by the time we were married, she's texted me like on my wedding day. So which is horrible. So but after that it just disappeared. And then so our helper, she also had an ex that was stalking her, and then was creating fake Facebook accounts and friending my
Okay.
friends and posting pictures of me na nakuha niya na screen
Yeah.
grab niya when he was chatting with my yaya, of like me walking in the background, and then pictures of my child, like for
Ay,
me,
oo.
and of my yaya's child. So medyo intense na siya.
Yes.
And he's in another country, so it's not like we can report him for police or whatever. So I sabi ko kay Ice, ano na to, big guns na to. So I go to Etsy and I hire an Irish witch. Man, my husband is Irish. Ice's partner is also Irish. So I have like a belief in that. So kailangan natin i-escalate. I-escalate yung issue. So she did. She cast the spell, di ba? Hindi pa natapos agad. She recast the spell. And then since she recast the spell, parang so far so good naman. Wala namang nangyayari. But then sometimes, I don't know if it's like her intent or whatever. And I sent a picture of her, a picture of her helper. And then she did it at an auspicious time to do
Yes.
it. And I think part of me needed to feel like I was doing something in a situation that I couldn't do anything. You know what it is. And if that is the only benefit, if the only benefit is for me to ease my anxiety, even if it didn't have real life actions, if he stopped calling us or stopped texting or whatever for one reason or another, completely unrelated to the spell, that's fine.
Yeah.
But for me, the action of doing it
yeah.
gave me a lot of
Tsaka help your anxiety,
Nung-
di ba? Oo.
For sure. So yeah, Etsy, which is on Etsy. Do it. It's great.
It's a category you never knew existed.
Number 1, go local. Meron naman tayo mga local practitioners.
No, I didn't know.
We
I
have
didn't
local
know that
practitioners.
until we started doing babaylan research.
So next time we reach out to a
Oo.
babaylan.
Ay, hindi wag babaylan kasi ano sila eh. So para,
Ay.
di ba supposedly babaylan is,
Albularyo.
kasi babaylan is mediators eh, di ba? So parang hindi sila not out to harm, not out to protect. They are just there. If there's a problem, talk to me. Parang ganon. So, ibang practitioners, meron naman yan. Ayoko na mag-advertise.
Kasi
Oo.
minsan, to be fair kasi minsan 2-in-1 eh. So iba parang babaylan sila but also they are...
There are instances. Yes, there are instances.
Yeah.
Ay, sorry. Nakalimutan ko at itanong. Can I ask you to describe the person with a weird hat that you saw sa campfire?
It's really hard to describe, but he looked kind of like it was a man and he was wearing parang bahag lang. And he was very jolly, like a very kind of playful kind of person. And he had this kind of parang siyang makeshift hat. It didn't feel like a real hat, pero parang siyang patong-patong na hat.
Okay.
So it looked weird.
Parang
and
putong?
weird. Oo.
Like maglalagay ka ng palayok on top.
Oo, there's always parang dancing, lagi siyang kengkoy. Yun yung vibe niya. But you could tell that he was old. He was an old, playful spirit person.
Have you checked your ancestry if merong indigenous?
Hindi pa nga eh, but I know that, so actually what struck me was when he called out, when he pointed to the super quiet, stoic guy in like the corner who was just sitting there like that. Tapos
Like
wala
a
siyang shirt,
bulol man.
nakaano siya, nakalakot lang siya ganyan, nakaganon siya. Tapos sabi nila, this is the first, and I found out eventually that actually an Indonesian word for like general.
Admiral, diba? Like a sailor.
He was probably like, yeah, like an admiral or a general. So, like an old warrior guy. Parang ganun. So, yun yung parang the way that I've interpreted it since then.
Okay. Kwento ko lang kung ba't nagtanong ako sa hat. I mean, the person with the hat. Kasi meron kami meron kaming running mystery. May running mystery.
Oh my God, natatakot na tuloy ako. Kinikilabutan ako. Oh.
May nakausap kaming girl, a tarot reader, and briefly kinwento niya sa akin na marami siyang kwento. And then one of her stories was, nung bata siya, there would be a man in a hat na medyo deformed yung face. And niyayank siya sa bed. Dinadala siya to this endless corridor. As in endless corridor with high ceiling. So ako parang, okay, one-off story. 2 weeks after, I get to talk to this girl, Pilipina rin. And she mentioned na, sometimes I would encounter this man in a hat and he would give me candy, but my mom told me not to accept anything in the astral realm.
Don't eat things!
Oh, so she avoid. So parang she didn't get it. And then I remember yung kwento ng tarot girl rin na when she would encounter the man in a hat, sometimes there would be a small girl beside her. Not a young girl, but a smallish girl. And lumabas rin sa story nitong teacher na, yeah, when she would give me candy, she would be standing beside a girl na beside her. They would hand me the candy. So parang ako, wait, baka may connection. So I called the tarot girl. Sabi ko, wait, usap kayo. Sabi ko, the tarot girl joined the call. Tapos, while they were talking, si teacher, dinidescribe niya yung endless corridor. Hindi pa lumalabas episode ni Tarot Girl, dinidescribe niya yung corridor. And then they completed each other's story. Describing that place. Na merong classroom, merong nakabantay sa door, merong kids sa loob na tinitrain or tinuturuan or whatever. So every time may nakausap ako who describes someone in a hat, so I try to ask just to see who that hat man is. And then ito yon. When I researched more about the hat man, it turns out it's a worldwide thing. Merong Reddit thread na hat man all around the world. Hindi ko alam. Baka minsan may nakita lang talaga sa may hat, pero so yun, I'm still trying to connect. I'm still trying to see kung ano yung hat man. So when you said that, hindi ko alam kung siya yun or tinatakot. Pero wala lang, sorry. So kinuwento ko lang yun.
So far, hindi pa naman siya classroom corridor. Nasa mountain ako noon eh. So,
okay.
Hindi ko sure.
Oo.
Tignan natin kung mabisita ko siya ulit.
Pero hindi naman daw supposedly evil yung Hatman. Again, different sides. So, hindi ko alam.
Yeah, but actually now that you mention him, I think the rest of the people around the campfire had faces. But I don't remember his.
Nice.
You know, your story about the Hatman reminded me of, there's this internet, like, it's another Reddit conspiracy. You know, the back rooms?
I know.
Bathrooms?
The back rooms.
What's
So
that?
people are talking about how they have images of these places called back rooms. And if you look at images of back rooms, they always feel like a place that you've already been in before.
Okay.
They're like abandoned rooms, abandoned corridors, think old auditoriums, ganun.
Okay.
And they're called the back rooms. And you typically wake up, or parang you go through a door and then you end up in the back room. Parang ganyan. It's different rooms for different people, but they say that it's kind of like the parallel, I don't know, a parallel realm or something that you accidentally end up going into.
Like the upside down, kumbaga.
Yeah, like the upside down, parang ganyan. But it's like, it's one of those things where, similar, I guess, to the Hatman, a lot of people have like ended up or felt like they ended up in the back rooms, parang ganyan.
Scary.
Di pa natin napag-usapan yung back rooms pala.
Hindi pa. I've never heard of those stories. Syempre na.
Google it. The images are really creepy.
I'm on Reddit now.
Narinig ko na ba yun, JP?
Not yet. I haven't gone on Reddit for a long time.
Natatakot ako sa Reddit eh.
The last Reddit story I read was yung tall man. After nun parang, okay, wag muna kasi parang the stories are getting into my head.
Is the tall man similar to the slender man? Or is that different one?
Different pa ata.
Different one ate, because tall man came in parang in the US. Si slender man came in US per LA. So parang I guess it's a diversion.
There's another
Yeah.
one. There's the red-eyed man then, di ba? That
Yeah,
one
I
was like
heard.
a thing in the 90s then, that people would come together, like they would wake up in the middle of the night. It's parang lucid dreaming kasi they can't move, and there is a man with red eyes sitting at the end of their bed or at the end of their hall or like through the window. And then they would talk about it, and then no one would believe them, ganyan ganyan. Tapos nung these people would come in college or whatever, and they would say na parang, I had a fairly normal childhood, except, I had a red-eyed man who would, sit at the foot of my bed. And then they said, wait lang. And then they would introduce them to another person at like a party. And they said like, tell him what you told me. And then the other person started crying because like, yeah, that guy was also in my childhood. Ganon.
Parang, if I'm not mistaken, the Red Eye Man, parang ganon. Parang it's a version of the Hat Man as well in the US.
Ah, talaga?
Kasi I just watched this documentary about the Hat Man. Pareho lang sila ng storyline. The difference is that yung, alam mo, parang watcher lang sila.
Yeah.
I feel like they're just testing if they can be seen.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, kasi the common denominator when on the stories ng na-interview nila is that they are just lurking. Pinapanood lang sila, but other than that, they're not hurting them, they're not doing anything against them. Yun nga lang, syempre, because of not understanding, ang mga tao natatakot sa Hatman, but other than that, lurking lang naman ang ginagawa nila.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I tell Yaya. Kasi pag nakakita siya, sinasabi namin, sabi niya, meron tayong ganyan. Sabi ko, alam mo, ate, kung may nakikita ka, wala naman silang magagawa sa'yo. I mean, they're just there, they're hanging out. So like, just treat them like, for me kasi, they feel like regular people. So I'm just like, yeah, there's someone hanging out in my bathroom. Because apparently, all my friends na nakakita, they say, nandun sa likod, nandun sa bathroom. So pagpapasok ako sa bathroom, I'm getting, guys, maliligo lang ako. Guys, okay lang ba manonood ako ng TikTok habang nasa toilet ako? Guys,
Huwag niyo ako judge.
Huwag niyo ako i-judge ha, sorry. So I think the lurking aspect of it, I get that it's scary and it's pero my husband tells me when The Shining was being made, Stanley Kubrick was asked in an interview, and sabi sa akin, and I said this in one of our interviews, na parang, do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in the afterlife and things like that? The side of Stanley Kubrick, I don't. But actually, if ghosts existed, isn't that wonderful? Isn't that an optimistic view of death? Because it means may after pa. Makakasama pa natin sila after. Isn't that great? So he thinks, the belief of ghosts is so for me, it's very like separate things, like spirits and ghosts and things like that. I'm not really scared of that. Elementals, medyo, Tapos parang pag mga monsters, yun na yung scary for me. But for me, kasi nakikita ko lang naman ghosts. So, and spirits. So, for me, I'm very like, yay, hi, hello, we're neighbors, let's cohabitate, and let's just like be just chill together.
I think yun yung attitude ng ibang experiencers na, again, iba-iba naman talaga. Pero one of the things that usually if they experience a spirit, seeing a spirit there, minsan shadows kasi the sight is not developed, they tend to, cast away, di ba? Parang ganun kagad when technically they have been there before you, di ba?
Yeah.
True.
Especially the guys around here in our house. I mean, they've been here for 100 years. I've only been here for 2 years. So, bahay nila to, diba? So, okay na. I think I take the same attitude as like when you see animals. Like pag may mga bugs kami dito. Ang dami namin butiki, which I love, by the way. So, pag may marami kami butiki dito, I'm like, hello, friend. Thank you for eating the mosquitoes. And just be like, welcoming. And, one time there was a palaka inside. And then ate picked it up and she goes like, salamat po. And then she just put it outside in the garden. And, just being like, no kicking,
Yes.
no meanness. And the same with for like the spirits who live here before we did.
Yeah, it's always best to assume like assume good intent, right?
Yes, yes.
I find myself, and I actually, until we started talking, I realized I had never stopped to think that I always did it. Whenever I pass by a big tree, or wherever I'm in a forest, I always say hi.
Okay.
Like I always touch and say hello.
Okay.
Bye. There's this tree in the street. I always say hi when
Oh,
I
it's a
pass it.
beautiful tree. It's a
It's a
beautiful tree
gorgeous
that
tree.
yeah, yeah.
It's like a heritage tree here. It's
Baka
protected.
nakakaramdam
But I
ka,
always
Ice. Hindi mo lang alam.
baka slight.
Oo.
Like I always want to feel like, they're friends. So I always just kind of like, ako na yung mag-reach out and be like, hello, 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 ganyan. It's like my version of tabi-tabi po.
Okay, so at this point, there was a brownout on my end, so apologies for the technical difficulties. There was a slight pause in the conversation, but we continue it here. Okay. Okay, technical difficulties.
Yay! So fun.
So, ang sabi mo, parang when you're giving energy, kailangan right hand.
Right,
Tas
yes. When you're receiving, so yung kaibigan namin na tumakit ng mountains, pag napagod siya, left hand on the tree, parang asking for energy. Parang, uy, I need energy, pagod ako, gano'n. Or when he needs to ground, kasi nakakakita rin siya ng spirits and elemental. So, part of the shielding process is grounding. So, he will accept energy through his left hand. Parang gano'n.
So interesting.
I wanna learn more about shielding din kasi noon may mumunga doon sa office namin. Remember Jim hired this feng shui expert guy to like de-exercise the whole place because not only was there mumu but 2 people died like within the same month. And then the dads of 2 of our friends died subsequently after, and they were young. So remember that? So pinag-bless niyo. So they did that, and I think right after that, okay naman yung vibe ng place.
But they had to. I remember kasi parang they had to move the general manager's office because it was in a very unlucky location or something. Parang the vibes were so
off. Then there were a lot of interventions, like some walls were built and things like that. Anyway, so that guy was we were talking to him, we were in public relations, and then a friend of ours, Anna, her dog went missing. Her very old dog went missing. So she asked the guy to help her look for the dog where it was. And I was there. Nagpasama siya sa akin when the guy went. And then sinabi sa akin ng guy, hindi ako nagpa-read or anything. The guy went to me and sabi niya, alam mo, ang lakas ng aura mo, ang lakas ng shielding mo. Sabi niya, pwede ba kitang isama pag nag-exorcisms siya? Dahil, sabi ko, so ano? Ako yung pupuntahan ng ghost? Sabi niya, hindi. Kasi daw yung energy ko daw will just naturally repel. Para akong I'm like slick. And I'm like oil. And it's just like nothing sticks. Like, sabi niya, hindi ka lang talaga, lapitin ka pero hindi ka didikitan. And sabi niya, and if I was saying, I'll split the profit with you, like 50-50. Ganyan. Sabi ko, ganon. And I remember years ago, 10 years before that, there was a shaman from Indonesia, from Bandung, Indonesia, who was a HR manager nung isang supplier namin and came to us and he was a healer and he's like psychic healer, shaman, and he is consulted by like presidential candidates in Indonesia and senators and ganyan. Parang he's, he can see, he can heal, he can make things happen. Tapos sabi niya, alam mo ikaw, ang gift mo, healing at saka shielded ka, you're a good shield. Sabi niya, would you want to be my disciple and learn? Ganyan. Sabi ko, ang 22 years old pa lang po ako, tsaka gusto ko po magtrabaho. Sabi ko, ayoko pong tumira sa Bandung kasi probinsya yun. Tapos, hindi masarap yung pagka. Anyways, so I just never, I never, approached that. But that's like, I guess like 2 spiritual practitioners who told me na parang I have like a good, like, sabi ko, hindi, cheerful lang ako. Baka yun lang. Pero na yun, like that shielding energy. Sabi ko, what is that? What is that magic?
Ako personally, again, manhid ako, so I wouldn't know. I just learn technically from the other people we talk to. Parang, again, it is a way of to control your environment na hindi ka baka yun eh. Pinag-usapan nga namin ni Martin the other day na kasi napag-usapan namin yung law of attraction and law of resonance. Sabi nga ni Martz, sabi niya, law of attraction at law of resonance, medyo same siya. Pero lumalabas, may nag-point out nga sa akin, law of attraction is you, para manifesting, you with the intent na, I want that, I want this. To attract, parang na-attract mo to yourself. law of resonance is just parang vibing. Parang kung good vibes ako, naturally, good vibes rin yung mga ma-attract sa akin. Parang ganon. So parang, hindi ko alam if that has something to do with shielding as well. Pero there are practitioners kasi that really do not intentionally shield. Parang ganon. And si JP, ganyan. Si Sam, di ko alam kung nag-shield yan. Pero, kasi parang, what comes will come, di ba? You put up barriers na kagad na parang, and people who are sensitive or practitioners, they see that immediately. And they will think, oh, why is this person shielding himself or herself from me?
Yeah.
So ganun. Pero I sent a link. Below. This is from one of we interviewed a guy over Discord. Nasa Appalachian Mountains siya. And
Oh, wow.
Shinare niya to. Siya nag-share niyan. Grounding, shielding, and grounding, shielding, centering, shielding.
Yeah.
So parang those are steps daw.
I remember yun na nakakakita agad. Yung our friend Ice Ange, her youngest tita, si Ai, her youngest tita, she used to be a medium. And then she pinaklose niya kasi it was just really disturbing her and like not helping her in everyday life. Pero when she first met me, sinabi niya kay Ange na parang, yung kaibigan mong yan, kasama mo yan palagi dapat. Kasi si Ange was so chong, which is she attracts disaster. Yun siya yung tipong hindi pwedeng pumunta sa ospital, hindi pwedeng pumunta sa patay, kasi she just attracts sa niya. Pero isama mo lang yan si Anna mo palagi kasi siya, swerte yan, tsaka siya, good shields. Like, what is it?
Oo nga. Baka may natural, alam mo may nakausap kami, hindi nga namin, dapat we meet namin the other day. Apparently siya, grounding.
Oh.
So, when there are sensitive people around him, wala sila nakikita.
Uy, nice.
Pero lumayo lang siya ng konti. I mean, hindi lang konti, pero basta lumayo siya, biglang
may proximity.
Nakakita na ulit sila. May proximity.
May dampening effect siya.
May dampening effect siya. Kaya gusto namin experiment the other day. So, hindi ko alam if similar doon yung sa'yo na talagang, if people come near you, parang meron kang may dome of protection ka. Over them.
I don't know.
So, I'm not sure if ganun.
Maganda yung eksperimentahan.
Okay, so thank you, Anama and Ice. Thank you for dropping by and sharing. Baka you'd like to plug your podcast.
If you'd like to listen to the Gods Must Be Crazy podcast, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Those are our main thing, but also Google Podcasts and Anchor is also great if you want to listen on desktop. We're trying to get our act together and do YouTube. So maybe the next episode of
It's very intimidating.
It's hard
because we don't put it
You're so old talaga. Like, hirap na hirap talaga kami. But like, yes, we'll try.
No, but yeah, so if you guys want to hear about stories of Filipino folklore and mythology, as we've talked about earlier, we tackle those topics, but we always try to look at it from the lens of modern culture, pop culture. We try to understand like historical origins. So what is the implication on our pre-colonial or post-colonial history, and what that means for our identity as Filipinos today. So if that's something that you're interested in, feel free to join us. We would love to kind of like have more conversations with more people. And we're very glad for everyone who's already listening.
Yay!
And yung request, sana merong yung Southeast Asian nyo na interview.
Yeah.
Nag-request, yung perspectives. Kasi ang ganda yung potential when I heard Anima said it kanina na when you tell a story and then someone from different parts of Southeast Asia will tell. And yung pala, sorry, before we end lang, are there beliefs with your partners na Irish ancestry? Are there beliefs that connect with what our beliefs are? Kasi Irish is...
I forget what they call it in Ireland, but there's definitely like an albulario equivalent. So you know how so Adam was saying earlier, diba, yung helper nila, si Ate Girlie, she would rub like ginger on like tiga when she's sick. So I was talking to like Shane and some of Shane's friends, and they were saying that, and this is very Irish setting. So you would literally go to a pub, and there would be a guy there, and you would get him a pint. That's how they pay him, because they don't want to pay him with cash. So they would get him a pint, and they would ask him for help with their troubles. So for example, one of them, like they got like really bad like measles or something. So her dad went to the pub, gave the guy a pint, and told the guy about like what they were going through. The guy went to their house and then he rubbed like potato. Again, it's very Irish.
Potato
He
talaga.
rubbed potato on like the feet of the kids who had measles, and then they buried the potato somewhere in the backyard. And then like 2 days after, it was completely gone.
So similar, merong ganyan, similar, anyway, Jake, hindi ko alam kung Jacob, alam kang ganyan.
Wait, you said JP, you're a practitioner. What are you a practitioner of?
So my grandfather comes from Bulacan. He's a descendant of a Catalonan, which you guys covered sa Babaylan. So I took over the line.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, JP, we should
interview you for the
Yeah.
part 5 of our Babaylan.
Yeah. So you're currently practicing.
Yeah. So what like Direk said, basically we can't take a side.
Mhm.
So if it's a spirit versus not really versus, pero parang may alitan
Mm-mm.
between a spirit and a person, you have to listen to both sides of the story. Kasi parang if you take the side of the human or you take the side of the spirit, parang you're not doing the
fair.
practice
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow, so
So you have to
cool.
listen to both sides and then come to the middle, and then guys, can you just coexist, or
Yeah.
can one of you move out? I'll move you to somewhere else. Yung ganon.
You're like a negotiator.
Yes, negotiate. Mediator.
Mediator.
One of the hypotheses we had, which I read about, of the etymology of the name Catalonan was katalo, meaning discussion.
Like a debate or like a
Like a debate or a discussion rather than a advocate.
fight.
Right? It wasn't a
Yeah.
fight. It's like a discussion. So, maybe there's some on that also, of that root. I like it because it means na patas lang ang karapatan ng spirit at saka ng tao. Because like we also said in the episode, the abay, the spirit is an individual also. It's an individual like that may not have a corporeal form like we know, but it doesn't mean that they're less of an individual with any less rights.
Si Sam naman similar dun sa kwento mo, Ice, na papainumin mo lang, yun. Pwede ka na pa-read naman sa bahay, papainumin. Pero isang case lang nga ang painom kay Sam. Pero game naman yun.
Kailangan mo lang case.
Uy, hindi
Ay,
na
hindi
ako
na ba?
nag-iinom. Starbucks na lang ako ngayon.
Starbucks na.
Direct,
Ay, sorry,
Starbucks
Starbucks na lang pala.
Ninira ka ng paninirang tao.
So, of course, at this point, we ended the conversation already. But Anama and I still had a few stories to tell. So we continued the conversation and a lot more stories came up. So here you go.
So this place called, I think it means happiness in Cebuano. I'm not 100% sure, but it's like the civilian quarters ng, and my dad used to work there. Tapos before, kasi ang quarters niya pang bachelor. So pag pamilya na kami nag-visit, doon kami magsa-isa. Pero the stories of are crazy kasi it's very grandiose but like not super well maintained. So when you enter the area, it's a house on a cliff overlooking the bay. And when you go there, pag enter mo, may malaking ballroom. On the extreme right, there's like a grand piano on wheels. And on the left is the dining room. And then beyond that is the kitchen. There's always a full staff there. Na mag-ina tsaka mag-tsahin. So like they're all like related somehow. And then beyond the right, there's where the bedrooms are. So sabi nila, ang frequent daw na nangyayari is you go to sleep at night and then you'll hear sounds of partying, like clinking of glasses, people talking, and like music, like piano music, like constantly, but there's like no one there. Tas dapat wag kang lalabas. Yun yung sabi nung caretaker, sabi sabi niya, basta pag may narinig kayo, huwag kayong lalabas, ganyan. And then one time daw nangyari, there was a group of pilots who were like, na ground sila for weather. Tama-tama sa weather ninyo ngayon. So may bagyo, so hindi sila makalipad out of Cebu. So a group of them that say like, 6 of them, I think. So there were 3 bedrooms, I think, or so. Basta hiwalay yung boys and girls. Isa lang yung babaeng piloto. Tapos, she heard the piano playing at night, naggalit siya kasi bakit yung mga boys pumaparty without her? Hindi siya inimbitahan sa inuman, ganyan-ganyan. So galit na galit siya, galit na galit siya. Tapos parang to spite them, hindi na rin siya lumabas, ganyan. Tapos paglabas niya the next day, the piano was on the other side of the ballroom. So at breakfast, ang init-init ng ulo niya, hindi niya kinakausap yung mga tao. Sabi niya, ba't ka galit? Ganyan-ganyan. Ba't ang taray-taray mo? Sabi, hay nako kayo, nagpa-party kayo. Hindi niyo ako kasama. Sabi natin, I mean, alam niyo namang I feel like othered because ako lang yung babae dito at hindi niyo man lang ako sinasama sa ganyan-ganyan. Sabi nila, hindi natulog kaming lahat. I mean, we drank but then we went straight to sleep right away. We didn't party. Sabi, sino yung nagpo-piano? Sino yung naggaganyan? Wala kami, natulog lang kami lahat, ganyan. Sabi niya, inuso niyo pa nga yung piano from last week. Sabi nila, hindi namin and then they tried to push the piano. They couldn't. 6 of them could not push the piano. So something else moved the piano from one end to another. And then there's all sorts of stories. There's a big acacia tree outside, and then may mga stories na may nagbigti daw. So if you see that window outside the room that you're in, tas mapagyo, don't look out because you'll see the shadow of someone hanging from the tree. Ganyan. So we heard all these stories, whatever, and my mom was freaked out, right? So she didn't want to stay in the place. We ate there, and then yung caregivers, pinagpakwento kami. So kinuwento nila lahat. And we were like, yay! Stories! My mom was freaked out. Ayaw niya. So punta kami dun sa, they're called BOQ, Bachelor Residences ng tatay ko. And it's these very American tropical style like apartments na essentially wala siyang pader, hindi siya wall. Alam niyo yung 80s na jalousie? Yung jalousie na ganon, pero kahoy. So yung walls mo, kahoy lang
para
talaga.
Para may airflow.
So it's very fresco, it's very And nangyari, bumagyo sa Mactan. 1990, hindi 1992, siguro 94, 95, 1992, 94, summer vacation. So, syempre yung tubig pumapasok sa loob ng quarters.
Rooms,
So, pinasundo kami ng van, malaking van. So, pasok kami. Akyat yung van na ganon. Pasok kami. Pagpasok namin sa van, biglang tumirik yung van. Tapos, so we were inside this van, nilarock kami ng bagyo for like at least 2 hours, right? And then while we were there, may radyo naman. So they were saying like, sir, yung opisina binabaha now because we were gonna sleep sa opisina. Sir, yung opisina binabaha. Sir, yung hotel binabaha, pinapasok ng water, ganyan-ganyan. O saan kami magpo-proceed? Saan kami pupunta? Saan sir, na lang ang pwede. Ang may lodging. Sabi niya, okay. So sabi mami ko, ayoko doon, may mumudo. Sabi ng daddy ko, tonight lang naman, wala namang problema, tonight lang yan. Okay, sige, ganyan. So someone came over, apparently naubusan ng gasolina yung van, nilagyan nila ng gasolina. Tapos we drove over to So, stormy na, no? Middle of the night na. Wala na. Takot na yung nanay ko. So, natulog na kami. Pagod na kami. And because my mom was freaked out, we all had to sleep in one room.
Yes.
There was like a big king-size bed and then 2 twin beds for me and my brother. So, tulog kami. And then, bigla nagising kami in the middle of the night. Yung nanay ko, sabi niya, alis na tayo. Ganyan. Hala, may nagdo-doorbell. Wait lang.
Sige, go lang.
Wait lang.
Go lang. To be continued. To be continued.
Nandun na tayo sa pinaka...
Oo nga eh. Yung reason kung bakit nagising si Mami.
Papunta pa lang sa exciting part.
Oo nga. Yun na rin sasabihin ko dapat.
Pabitin talaga eh.
Masakit sa pantog to, in fairness.
Ako rin nakaganon eh. Ano yung nakita ni Mami?
Oo. Malalaman niya sa susunod na episode. Charot!
Oo nga. To be continued. Pero ay sa'yo, pagkausap mo si Anama, wala siya nakikita dyan sa inyo.
Ha?
Wala siya sinasabi.
Okay,
ganyan.
Kasama kami, wala pa kami nakikita together. Pero kasi naman, nagkasama na ba kami ng gabi? Parang most of our recordings are in the morning din eh. So hindi na.
Talaga?
Okay, sorry FedEx.
Okay lang.
Okay, so yun. So,
tumayo na kayo.
Biglang naka-on lahat ng lights. Yung nanay ko, alis na tayo, nangyari. Apparently, nagising siya in the middle of the night, may yumuyug-yug nung kama nila. As in, yumuyug-yug. Sabi ko, baka si daddy lang yan nagsusnore, nagbabibrate lang. Sabi niya, no. Tapos pagkita namin sa floor, gas-gas yung floor. may yumuyog, may, as in, na ganyang kalaking, like, someone was really moving the bed back and forth. Sabi ko, gumagalaw pa ba? Sabi niya, hindi na. O, di tulog na tayo. Tapos sabi ko, baka may something sa ilalim. So, sinilip ko sa ilalim, wala naman ako nakita. But one of the stories kasi of the caregiver from the previous day is sometimes daw, nakatingin ka sa alam mo yung mga cabinet na hindi siya naka-flush sa ceiling.
Yes. May space.
Yung may space between the ceiling.
Oh.
Paminsan-minsan daw pag nakatingin ka sa ganun, may nakasilip daw na ganun sa so, di ba? Very, very direct, very Japanese. So yun, wala naman ako nakita sa room. Pero yung mom ko could not be consoled. She was like inconsolable. So we had to leave and we had to go to my dad's office na may tubig. So tumulay may kahoy.
Talagang doon pa talaga.
Doon na lang talaga kami natulog sa office ng daddy ko na may baha. Kasi ayaw na talaga ng mom ko. Tapos sabi niya, balik na tayo Maynila.
Merong, hindi ko alam naisip ko lang sa kwento ng mom mo. Meron kasing theory, again, puro naman theory ang sa akin. Merong theory or may sinasabi rin iba, entities are attracted to energy. And if you emit that emotion or energy, may entities ka ma-attract. And baka dahil sa fear ng mom mo, para, yummy, feared. So, yun, talagang tinakot pa siya just to get that out of her.
I was watching kagabi. There's this new Guillermo del Toro Cabinet of Curiosities.
Cabinet of Curiosities. Oh.
So we watched the first one, right? Last night was very, very good, by the way. So, ang sabi nung isang guy, nung parang someone who was versed in the occult, and sinabi niya dun sa lay person, when you go in here and you see something and it's not of this world, do not make eye contact because it'll see the darkness in you and it will consume the darkness in you. So, feeling ko yun nga yung mom ko, sabi ko sa mom ko, takot ka kasi, kaya ikaw yun nilapitan. Sabi ko, kung hindi ka naman takot, naman.
Oo.
So, yeah. So, I mean, after that, hindi na siya nakakita.
Talaga?
And like, in the house that we lived in the basin, my ninong died there. And he died in the master suite. So it's one of those old World War II houses na parang kinabit-kabit na lang ng mga Amerikano, right? So he was like in the main bedroom, which is a big bedroom, walk-in closet, banyo, then dining room, then living room, and then like the main bedrooms on the other side. My mom refused to sleep in the master's bedroom where my ninong died. So they slept there in the malaki my apartment. So ako, sabi ko, game, I'll sleep in ninong's bedroom. And then like sometimes I'm just like in the bedroom by myself, magpo-flush ng toilet mag-isa, and I'm like, or like sometimes sa banyo ko, nag-on yung TV, the static lang, ganyan. And there's no way that people can come in except there's just like one door. Yeah. So sabihin ko, ninong naman. Nag-aaral lang ako. Ano pa? So, yeah. Pero my mom never went into that room. She never slept in that room kasi takot lang talaga siya.
So sa recording nyo, wala pa kayong weird experiences?
While recording?
One time we were talking and then we said something, biglang kumulog.
Wow.
Biglang
talaga. Ano sinabi nyo?
Hindi ko na maalala
We were talking about I remember now. Parang we were talking about so how should we call a spirit? So we should just say, we need this. Parang ganun. Parang we called out for something.
Tapos biglang kumulog. We just called in like, should we call out for wealth and ganyan. So far yun pa lang. Pero hindi ka, once pa lang kami nag-record dito sa house, pero sobrang ingay kasi. So hindi namin
maybe our Halloween special we should record at midnight.
Yun! Exciting!
In the haunted corridor.
Exciting!
Doon sa corridor na. Ay, hindi ko pa pala nakakwento yung haunted corridor.
Sige, go.
So ito yung house namin. Mahaba siyang house. Okay, so this is I'll show you. I'll take up my camera so you can see.
Sige.
So the house is very long. So yan, just as good. Ito, I'm at the front. So yun yung kalye, right?
Okay.
So in this up here is a balcony. Here is Yaya's room.
Okay.
The baby's room is lampas pa that door. Kasi kusina pa yan.
Okay.
Lampas pa ng kusina, yun yung bedroom ng baby. So imagine mo yung haba ng hallway.
Yes. Oo.
So in that hallway, it's just the baby's room. She's by herself. My husband's studio is here and then our bedroom is here. So siya lang mag-isa dun sa dulo. So the bathroom of our yaya and the baby, they share the bathroom. It's right next to the baby's room. So dulo-dulo rin siya sa corridor. So there's a good 15-meter walk na
Okay.
dark corridor lang siya. Tapos si yaya nagigising ng 3 o'clock every morning. Not every morning, once or twice a
Oo.
week. To Wiwi. Pag pumunta siya sa banyo, naririnig niyang may bumubulong sa ear niya ng good morning. Tapos it's not any of our voices. And then may accent. And because di ba yung nakatira
Singaporean
dito
accent.
dati? Hindi daw.
Puti.
British accent.
British.
Oo. Kasi British di ba nakatira dito before? And it's like, it was built in 1920. So, yung sabi ko, baka yung dating resident sa good morning na sa'yo. It's like, buti good morning yung sinasabi. And it's like a regular occurrence. Like
Yes.
last week, it happened again. So, yeah.
Friendly nga, di ba?
They all honestly, they all feel very friendly. They all feel, the other day, I was, nung nagbabiyahe ako, nagva-vacuum si Aya ng buong house. Ina-unplug daw ng
talaga.
mumu yung
Naingayan.
vacuum. So she had to go back. Kasi mahaba yung cord ng vacuum, di ba? So she had to go back and forth to
Plug it back, oo.
to plug it back in. Actually, naka-plug pa rin siya.
Oo.
Namamatay lang siya. To turn it on and turn it off. Oo. Nawawalan na ng power. Hindi siya lumang vacuum. Bago-bago siyang vacuum.
Oo.
So sabi ko, yaya, baka naiingayan kasi may ingay naman talaga ang vacuum. So ayaw nila na sobrang ingay. So,
Hindi ko rin magets talaga minsan yung connection ng spirits. I mean, yung kaya nilang i-access ang electronics. Yun yung nakakabilib eh.
kwento mo Ice yung yung kotse nung tito mo.
So siya, 40 days ng tito kasi namatay siya last year. Tapos 40 days niya. Tapos parang naglolokohan yung dalawang cousins ko at that time. Naglolokohan sila na parang, kanino pupunta yung yung kotse ni tito. Parang ganyan. Nag-aasarin sila. Or parang sabi nila, hindi, sige, idalin natin sa quarry, ganyan. Maarte yung tito ko sa car niya. Ayaw niya napuputika, lagi niya nililinis, ganyan. So yung joke sila, dadalin nila sa quarry, parang ganyan. Tapos, parang no one had used it for a few days. Biglang na-trigger yung alarm. And it was parked at the very back of the house. So no one was there. Wala namang animals there. No one was parked there. Na-trigger yung alarm. Bigla siyang nag-blare. So they had to look pa for the keys and then they had to turn it off. And then meron actually subsequent story after. So 2 weeks after the 40 days, bumalik sila sa house. Tapos parang naglolokohan sila kasi yung tito ko, bago siya namatay, nag-joke siya na parang meron daw siyang mga tinagong yaman elsewhere. So parang meron siyang vault sa bahay. Nakalock lang yung niya. Nakalock lang yung all of his documents and whatever dun sa safe niya. Tapos parang nagjo-joke sila kasi loko-loko yung cousins ko yun. So parang naglolokohan sila na parang isisirain daw nila yung safe, parang makuha nila yung yaman, kasi daw nandun yung clue, parang ganyan, nag-joke sila. Tapos, tumunog bigla yung safe. Again, not triggered by anything.
Tumunog yung safe?
Tumunog yung safe. Tapos, kasi siya, electronic safe siya. Tumunog bigla yung safe. Tapos, sine-check nila. Tapos, sinatry nila buksan kasi they had naman the key and everything. Hindi nila mabuksan. So, syempre, nagpanic na yung mga tao kasi nandun yung mga papeles niya, ganyan, people or whatever. Tapos, yung mom ko dumating, sabi niya, ano ba kasi ginagawa niyo? Ina-assert niyo yung tito niyo? Parang ganyan-ganyan. Tapos, nag-joke yung mom ko. Tapos, sinabi lang niya in the room na parang, joke lang sila, hindi nila gagawin yun. Parang ganyan. And then, after, they tried a few times na to open the lock. After my mom said that, she tried again, tapos nagbukas for her yung lock. So yeah. So natakot yung mga so yung dalawang lalaking loko-loko, natakot na sila pumasok sa room ng tita.
Natuto na sila.
Takot lang nila.
Oo nga.
But it's funny, pero sabi ng husband ko, it's just so funny how quick people would rather believe a superstition than the actual reality of it. Sabi ko, yun nga, again, if nothing else explains it and it's just like a weird timing, why not? Why not? It could be just as true as anything else, right? So Halloween is coming up.
Yeah, oo nga eh.
which is one of the
Bas,
only
yan
which is
na.
one of the only real Celtic religions that exist, Celtic traditions that exist. So my husband is very excited. It's my daughter's
Same.
favorite holiday. So well, actually, that's one of our Irish partners was actually for me. That was one of the reasons then for me to really dive deeper into mythology, Filipino mythology, because when our daughter was born, my husband so Ice's partner is from Republic of Ireland. My husband is from Northern Ireland. So it's one island, but
Yeah.
it's two nations, kumbaga.
Okay.
So
It's purely coincidence, by the way. We
Yeah,
didn't plan
hindi
to
namin
go
sinadya.
with Irish people.
I've been with my husband for 10 years. I mean,
Yeah.
So my husband is British nationality.
Okay,
Pero
okay.
because di ba gulo-gulo sa Northern Ireland
Yes,
ngayon. So si husband had to leave Ireland and move to the US.
During the Troubles, right?
During the Troubles in the 70s. Pero he's very much in touch with his Irish roots and he used to go every year to see his relatives. So he is like Irish, and he is an O'Reilly, which is one of the oldest families in Ireland. And the first king of Ireland is actually Brian O'Reilly. So when my daughter was born, she was the first grandchild of his side of the family and also on my side. So all of these relatives also like came out of the woodwork. We got like books on Irish folklore. We got crests, like family crests of the O'Reilly family. And then she had like an aunt may pattern, may
Yes.
knitting pattern.
Oo.
That is the O'Reilly
O'Reilly.
knitting pattern. And so sabi ko, wow, ang ganda naman, ang dami niya ganyan, ang dami niyang books from Ireland, ganyan, ang dami siyang costumes from Ireland. Sabi ko, dami mo siyang Filipino, ganyan. I mean, Di Mapilis is an indigenous name, but to be honest, we can't really trace our roots farther than my great-granddad. Hanggang dun lang. And then sabi ko, we should be able to tell her stories of like, ganyan. And then there were very few. I mean, there's some you can get. Winipe out ko na atang Adarna books, yung Pumple Pie books, winipe out ko na rin, ganyan. So sabi ko, I want her to live in a world where the existence of Philippine mythology content is as prevalent as Irish mythology. And to be fair, hindi siya ganun ka-prevalent. But there are cartoons like The Song of the Sea.
Yes. Oo, ganda yun.
But a lot of what we know about fairies came from Celtic mythology.
Exactly. It's from
Right?
Celtic.
So
fairies,
fairies, as we know them
duende.
Yeah. The Seelie on Seelie Court, yung mga ganong idea of dark fairies, light fairies, a lot of it came from Celtic mythology.
So one of my husband's best friends is this awesome lady na when I first met her, sobrang nipis ng upper lip niya. I mean, she's white, but like sobrang nipis ng upper lip niya. Tapos halos wala siyang philtrum. Tapos sabi ni Brian, oh yeah, no, she has a fetal alcohol syndrome. Because it's one of the characteristics that happens na
one time. Kasi LDR kami ni Shane for like 2 years. So the way that we would kind of like stay connected is we'd have calls every day. And sometimes he would go for walks to like different parks and he'd like just show me around. And it's so funny because, you know, similar to how like sometimes we still believe in like Nuno Punto and stuff like that. In Ireland, there's this park and there would be like little colorful, like siguro ganito kalaki. And they would decorate it and they would be fairy doors. So lalagay nila sa puno. Tapos nakalagay yung maliit na door na nun. Tapos dine-decorate nila. So it's yellow, pink, blue, whatever. Tapos ano daw, it's fairy doors. So they usually do it in like a little grove. So like there was this grove he passed by. Tapos parang there's this tree na they formed a circle around like this stone.
A fairy circle.
And then there was a door in each of the trees. Parang ganun.
See, my husband was saying before, like he's very like, he doesn't really believe in the supernatural and everything, but he does believe in magic and like chaos magic in particular. But he thinks na superstitions are just constructs. Sabi ko talaga, so wala kang superstition na pinapaniwala. Like wala, as in absolutely wala. Tapos sabi niya, well, if I see a fairy ring, I will not cross it. It's like, why? What will happen? I will be sucked into the fairy world. I was like, so you do believe in ano. Pero I think the ritualistic aspect for him is he doesn't really believe in it. I think it's because he was in the Catholic Church a lot. He was like sacristan and everything, and the whole ritualism of it,
Ingrained
he found
talaga.
very
Yeah.
ingrained but also hypocritical.
Yes.
Like for him, na parang masasamang tao itong mga kasama ko na yung banal-banalan aren't like that great. So for him, he sort of like a associated ritual and superstition to like hypocrisy.
Yun nga yung isang observation. And again, this is my observation. So, for me, nagkaroon ng systemic oppression sa indigenous practices and beliefs. So, kagaya yan, Ireland, tinatry pa rin ni Britain i-force yung kanilang Catholicism noong time na yun. So, marami nakakip. So, if you think about it, I guess before the Romans siguro, talagang all around the world, we had beliefs that are very similar. Smaller people. And then may mga, yun nga sabi ko, isang theory ko, yung Bigfoot na yan is kapre rin nila yan di ba? And may nakausap kami na psychic, tinanong ko kasi nakakapunta siya ibang countries and nakakita siya talaga ng entities. Sabi ko, so may nakikita ka bang duwende sa ibang bansa? And she said, sa Middle East, sa Australia. And the difference is, they would look like they are from that place. Meaning, yung features ng Middle Eastern man or woman, yun yung features ng duwende nakikita niya. Parang they acclimate to the surrounding. Hindi ko alam
Yeah, because even the stories are very similar, right?
Diba?
So for example, a pixie or a selkie will try to lead you astray or like will try to get you lost. And the way to prevent doing that is to turn your clothes inside out. It's exactly
My
the same.
favorite thing. My favorite thing.
Diba?
Something
But also,
like
ano ba siya,
20,000
inside?
miles away from each other, but there's
Yes.
exactly
It's the same. It's the same
Inside
ano.
out, front to
Even
back, top and bottom. Paano ba? Baliktad lang ba? Inside out?
Even Chana,
Oh,
I think there's a very similar word in Mexico.
yeah.
Diba?
Yeah.
It's the
There
same,
is.
It's the same thing. It's a
Usog.
monstrous baby.
Usog.
Usog.
Anong usog?
Usog. Oo. Mal de ojo in Mexico.
Mexico?
Mal de ojo. Oo. So, mal de ojo, evil eye.
Evil eye.
Usog. It's the whole practice. It's like, it's very common everywhere. Ako malakas ang usog ko. So I had a party here in my house, and my friend, si Bodhi, who's also, he also is a content creator, but he does more on shows, like TV shows. He sensed it before I ever told him. So when I first met his kids, he was like, Anama, lawayan mo naman tong dalawa ko kasi parang may naramdaman ako. So I go, did I tell you? Did you hear from someone na nakakausog ako? Sabi niya, no, I just felt it. And so nilawayan ko na ganyan. Then the other time we had a party here in my house again, like just 2 months ago. And my Indian coworker brought her baby. And then she was late. And when she arrived, naglaro kami ganyan. Tapos sabi niya afterwards, sabi niya, Anama, can you bless my daughter? Psycho, why? Sabi niya, I think you have evil eye. And I think, Psycho, did you know? I mean, we've known each other for years. Did you know? Sabi niya, no, I just felt something.
By the way, Anama,
Like-
you always make babies cry. So,
Yeah.
that
No, that one I do for fun.
Before she had her kid, her favorite
Yeah.
hobby was just to make babies cry.
I
All
love
the
it.
time.
Yeah, I made them
Baby
stop.
feels
I felt
good.
like, I'm so good at it. And then they said like, oh, if you have your own kid, hindi mo na yung paiiyakin. Nope. Palagi ko pa rin siya pinapaiyak.
Personal theory. Anong theory mo with regards to usog?
I think it's related to my strong energy.
Uh-uh.
I think it's that. I think medyo there's a vibe that I give
Yeah.
up, which is like whatever, gamma rays for babies. And and it's just like when I see a baby and I'm like, oh my God. It's just too much.
Uh-uh.
And babies are like particularly open, I would guess. Like in the same way they can see ghosts and things
Yeah.
like that. I think it's that. Ay, pero grabe na usog ko dati yung yaya nung baby nung boss ko before. Inutusan ako ng boss ko to pick something up at their house.
Yeah.
So pagdating ko doon, yung yaya niya sobrang taray. So, and I was hungry. So, pagpunta ko doon, so sabi ko, hi yaya, kukunin ko lang yung ganyan guys niya. And then nothing dead, ma. I'm like, okay. Sabi ko, yaya, kunin ko lang ganyan. And then I signed for it and then I left. And then I had to run a fashion show in Shangri-La. So I was in the middle of the fashion show. I was, it was going great, blah, 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 blah. And then tinawagan ako ng boss ko. And they were in the middle of a wedding. So like remote. Sabi niya, "Hey, Anama, Jane, dumang ka sa house kanina to pick up the thing, right?" It's like, "Oh, yes, yes." Tapos sabi niya, you talk to Yaya. I said hi, and then hindi niya ako pinansin. Sabi niya, "Okay, this is gonna sound ridiculous, and I don't know if you believe in this thing, right?" And I said, "Okay, let me guess, nausog ko siya." And then they said, "Why did you do it? Why did you do it?" And they're very Konyo, like Chinese, Filipino. "Why did you do it?" And I said, like, "Well, if you understand the principle of usog, I didn't mean to. She was just mean to me, and I was hungry." So, and I was just sending her good vibes and hello, and then she ignored me. And so, of course, I can't help it. That happened. So I have to drive back, traffic, whatever, tagal ng Bali. It takes...
Laway.
It took me like maybe an hour to get back. She had thrown up 12 times.
Wow.
She had thrown up 12 times. And so...
Wait, pagkapatin na akong camera.
Sorry. Hindi ako gutom. I've never remotely usog before.
Okay. Good.
And then I had to halaway her, and I had to do like alis-alis usog, and then I thought that was the last of it. But then I had another job where yung inutusan namin yung office guy namin, and he would make like instant pancit canton for a merienda, and he wouldn't make for me because he was on the phone with his girlfriend. So I was like, whatever, I'll make it myself. Absent siya na 5 araw. And he went to the doctor.
Si Rachan.
Oo, si Rachan. As in, up and down. So, and then he went to the doctor. It wasn't gastritis. It wasn't food poisoning. It wasn't anything. Went to Albulario. It's in Albulario. Ay, nabati ka. Ganyan. And then the Albulario healed him. And then they came over the next day. Yung nabati ka. Tapos sabi ko, oo, kasi hindi mo ako pinansiganyan. Sabi niya, bakit mo yung ginawa sa akin? Again, if you understand the principle of usog, I didn't mean to. It's just, it happens, right? I'm sorry. It's like, so don't be mean to me again. So, sorry. So I try to be full all the time.
Feeling ko parang yung willpower mo eh. Yun ang theory ko. Willpower mo na parang talagang parang freight train na jug.
Oo, malakas yung vibe. So nilalagnat yung mga baby. Ang kawawa pa minsan yung mga baby like instantaneously. I'd be like in big parties, and then a mother would bring a baby to me and be like, lawayan mo nga kasi. After I said hi, nilagnat yung baby. Ganun.
Na-imagine ko yung situation na bigla na may lalapit sa'yo.
Diba? It's so unnerving.
Oo.
Ever since high school ako, like, they would just bring out babies and they're like, and I'd just be like, okay, fine, sanay na ako.
Oo.
Which is hard during the pandemic. But I didn't see any babies then, so that's fine.
Sorry, Ice, last question. Alala ko yung nag-shamanic ka nga, and na-mention ni Anama yung up and down. Kasi maraming shamanic journey. Before you get to that place, meron ka suka tsaka poops. Did you go through?
Like ayahuasca, right?
Oh, like ayahuasca.
No, it wasn't ayahuasca. So I think it was more of like kind of a hypnosis with the drumming and the sounds.
Okay.
So they would there would be someone playing drums, and then they would, I forgot what instrument they used, but there was something that they would some mystical kind
was
of.
Was it like a bell, and then it was like a bowl, and they go like, boom?
No, there were the sounding bowls, but it was something. It wasn't something like an equivalent of a cymbal-ish, and then it would shimmer, like a shimmering sound. So it would kind of get you in like a semi-trance
Yes, so.
Parang ganon. But it wasn't as intense as ayahuasca. Who knows what I would have ended up doing with ayahuasca. No.
Kakaiba nga. Pero ang galing na, kaya nasabi mo, no, parang hindi kaya na-imagine, hindi mo ma-imagine yun na gagawin mo yun. Tsaka naunahan ka nung guide, na you would see them in a campfire, di ba?
Actually, yun talaga yung moment where I was like, okay, this is freaky. When the campfire happened before, I knew that the campfire was supposed to happen. And parang, sabi nga ng guide, kasi help you interpret it, right? Sabi niya, so the fact na nangyari yung motif of nalagpasan mo, that's babalikan mo. Sabi niya, it's likely that this isn't the first time you've been through the journey. You just don't remember it. Parang
Have you heard of Akashic readings?
The Akashic, yeah.
Yeah, they access the Akashic records for you or something.
Mm-hmm.
Nagawa mo na ba yun, Anama? Di ba yun?
No, not yet. No, but I've read about the Akashic records, and it's also related to big magic, like we were talking about, because they say a spontaneous creation, like how
have either of you done it na ba?
Have you guys done it?
Yes.
So what's it like?
What do you
What
do?
do they do?
Wala. For me, it was just a conversation like this, but a practitioner who would, Zoom kami, Zoom. Hindi face-to-face. And yun, parang, it's kind of tracing your soul origin. If you believe in reincarnation, di ba? Actually, tinanong ko doon, sabi ko, was there anything significant with my past lives that I did or ano? She read, parang she asked, and then she said no. Parang,
Yeah.
walang piece of
Okay.
history yung aking ano.
Alam mo, mas naniniwala ako dyan kasi
Oo.
a lot of people have, okay, I'm also really into cults. Like, I'm really like fascinated with cults. And a lot of these cults, they say na parang, I am the reincarnation of Mary, and you are Cleopatra, and you are Napoleon, and we should all form this group together. I'm like, really, really, in this group, lahat kayo, big people in history, really, how unrealistic is that?
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-uh.
Like, it's more realistic that you were like, I was a regular guy.
Yes, yun nga eh. Yun nga eh.
Or
Totoo.
maybe I was maybe I was in royalty, but maybe I was just a duchess, So like, for me, if I heard that, if I heard like someone, I had a reading before with Luis Veloso, and she said that I'm a star seed, and I was like, great. And that's actually one of the tarots that I have by my bedside, that I'm a star seed. Like, you're not from this plane, you're not from this world. Great. Will it change how I decide and how I move through life and whatever? If I found out that I was Cleopatra in a past life, will that mean I will have my siblings killed and ganyan? No, but it's just like I think I love, but I do like the belief of how, if you have several lives, or if you are connected to your ancestors and you're aware of that the energy that they build up, the karma or whatever you call it, is your foundation, and you're not starting from zero. That's a very heartening thought,
Yes.
diba?
Yes.
Na parang your past lives have built you for this lifetime, or your ancestors' path has brought you to this lifetime. That I can get behind. That one I'm like super, like Mulan, like all those ancestors in those shrines cheering for you and gunning for you. That one I think is a great thing to know.
Parang Avatar nga, if you watch Avatar, yung Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Yung parang
all of the
niya.
previous
Yes,
avatars.
yung line.
Yeah.
Oo.
Yeah. No, pero di ba yun din yung sinabi nila sa shamanic ritual? Like, the whole point of like seeing your ancestors is just so you recognize that everything you've ever wanted to do has already been done before by like all of your ancestors. Like, it already exists.
I really think there's something in that people want for grounding, but like from a belief of grounding. Like, what am I made of? What are my ingredients, so that I might have it inform my way forward? And that's why like genetic testing is like such a big thing. And like, ano nga na, isang idea namin yan ni Ice, pero dibs na yan ng idea na yan. It's
Okay.
like, how some people get like, have like, I'm 50% Irish, I'm 50% Filipino, ganyan. Pero like may mga remote talaga, like I'm 1% Spanish, or yung mga ganun. Or like I'm like mostly white, but I have a 1% black. So yung parang, or what would that happen? And then so my business idea is to create a fictional story of that from like, let's say 6 generations ago. So 6 generation ago would be like 1800s.
Yes.
And then there was like a slave girl, and then there was like a white man who was magnanimous, and then they fell in love, but then there was a tragedy. And then just like a made up story that people can like just latch onto, because they want to believe that they come from a substantial past.
Yes.
But the fact that we're alive today is substantial.
Yes.
I mean, all the weird things that had to happen for all of us to be alive, and no one else is alive. Our other ancestors aren't alive. So I think that's like the benefit of it. And I think there's always going to be a need for history, for mythology, for origins, identification. People love putting themselves in boxes, and classifications. And then we're just giving them another lens to perhaps identify with.
Yeah. I mean, I think the whole I wouldn't call it trend, but the whole movement now of like, a lot of like Filipinos today, and especially people from like the diaspora, right? There's this whole like idea of decolonizing. And I think that's why there's so much content now on like mythology and pre-colonial history, because everyone wants to kind of reclaim what is our identity as Filipinos if we were not touched by, colonial forces like Spanish and the Americans and stuff like that. Because there's a lot that we've lost. And I think we can't throw away our identity today. Like, we are as we were formed. It's not healthy to also deny that part of yourself. But I think it's great that people are trying to kind of get back to the roots of how were societies like before? How did we treat people before? What did we used to believe? And what does that say? That certain parts of those of that identity survive to today. Diba? Because to your point, even if like people have moved away from the provinces, they probably don't have as deep beliefs in mythology and folklore. The fact that people are broadly aware, right, of a lot of the mythological creatures means that something about the essence of it, or what it stands for, means something.
Yeah.
So
It reminds me nga, I think you had a aswang episode pero it was a book. Tama ba? You read a book about...
yeah,
Tama? Oh.
yeah,
This was our mini-sode.
I read Melania, Devourer of Men.
Oo.
It's like erotic.
Oo.
Yeah.
It's a real book.
My mom had to listen to that episode. Can I just...
Narinig ko nga minsan my mom listens to the episodes.
Yeah.
So,
Hi,
No, and
Tita
can I
Ofe.
just see how awkward it was? Because, I mean, I know she listens to the episodes, and that's fine. But one time, as in the exact time that Shane and I visited the Philippines, and we were driving to Pampanga, and apparently they always listen to our podcast when they take the drive, the 1.5 hour drive to Pampanga.
Oh,
We had to listen to that episode together in the car. Oh my god! I was dying. It was me, my mom, my sister, and Shane. It's just like I wanted to hide. I wanted to throw myself out of the car. Anyway,
That's so embarrassing.
sorry, you had a different one.
yung question ko with regards to aswang, I'm not sure again if you have one in the pipeline na. Pero about aswangs, parang these are stories that come third hand na halos siya. Yung sinasabi nila, aswang, maglalagay silang oil, di ba? Before they fly or whatever. So, merong similar practice ang babaylan that they put oil on themselves. So, sinasabi na, yung mga babaylan yun yung aswang. During the invasion of the Spaniards, there was a consortium or there was a quorum between different tribes. And they had an agreement that we will summon this busaw or let's say negative entities from different tribes and we will ask for powers. And each tribe will ask for a Kaya yung mga aswang is merong
Iba-ibang kinds.
Merong nag-transform to aso, nag-transform, may lumilipad, technically may psychic vampires rin, di ba? So parang it is because of the separate tribes. And they were told not to intermingle supposedly, pero I think ngayon may intermingling na. I'm not sure if you will be able to see it if you're gonna research it.
I hadn't seen it when I was doing the aswang, manananggal specific research, but it
part,
actually. Oh yes, go.
No, the other side to that theory, right? Because that's one. I think that's a very interesting kind of story. Na parang it was a deliberate part on the babaylan, so kind of summon power to try to help the revolution. Because the other kind of interpretation from history is that there was a concerted effort from colonial forces to rebrand the babaylan into monsters because they knew that they held so much power and influence in all of the local communities, and they would be the central figures who could gather people in a revolution. Because I'm sure they killed all of the warriors by that time, right? So who were the people that could actually lead communities?
In Batangas, where we were, they said there's an area there called Pinagkwartelan, which is our quartel. It was a headquarters of originally Spanish and then later on Japanese. Where there were rumors nga na dun daw yung nest nung aswang, like andun daw yung maraming manananggal. And until like recent years, manananggal is still like the pag may nakukunan sa Batangas, it's always like ay kasi may manananggal, and their base daw is dun sa pinagkwartelan. And so my dad, who is a military strategist, sabi niya in what they found in some accounts was that the Japanese and then the Americans and then maybe the Spanish before would say that this is where the monsters are para hindi sila puntahan, para hindi sila, to keep them away. And apparently in Capiz and in those areas as well, yun din daw yung rumor ng mga Americans and mga psyops kumbaga, which was my dad's his specialties, psyops. So yun din yung sabi niya. I think, it's very believable. And I told him about yung sinabi ni Ice na the babaylans were villainized. Sabi niya, of course they were. Sabi niya, of course they were. That's what I would do if I were a military, overlord. Sabi niya, they have the power. They were influential. They were, in the belief of magic in the revolution was very real. I think we had an episode of anting-anting, and one of the anting-antings was in the Katipunan. They got daw the habits of the Gumborza friars. Tapos apparently they cut daw a circle piece of fabric. Tapos binibigay daw yun sa lahat ng fighters. And then either isusubo nila or ikikip nila to themselves, and as long as they had that, they would be bulletproof and they would not be captured by the Spanish. And that belief, that it makes you braver, it makes you more daring, so it's very real. So I see why the Spanish would want to, demonize that. I love the story though of that's the origin story of Buffy the Vampire Slayer kasi how Buffy the Vampire Slayer was created. Kasi di ba, the vampire a vampire slayer once in every generation. There is so the powers of Buffy are actually like a vampire. They're like demonic. They're like a
super strength, diba?
Super strength, fast healing, no need for rest, ganyan. And so what they did in the cavemen, this is the Buffy origin story. Cavemen apparently chose a girl who was willing to sacrifice for her village. So there has to be a willingness. It can't be like a forced thing. They tied her to a cave. They summoned the demon to enter into her.
Yes.
And so every generation, when she dies, the demon enters into a new girl and a new girl and a new girl and a new girl. And so in the finale of Buffy, sorry, there's a connect. No spoilers, but in one it's not the super end of Buffy kasi nag-continue pa siya sa comics. Pero in one season ending, the only way to defeat the final evil was the first evil actually, is to have many slayers, many vampire slayers. And so what they did was they unlocked whatever was locking the demon into one girl, and they enabled the demon to access all the potential slayers, like all the people who had that potential in them. So very young girls from like 10 all the way to like 21. And so they got like a league of slayers. And I say this because there's a wonderful comic called In Every Generation, because that's the start of Buffy. Like, every generation. This is actually how I found Caggio Baldissimo, who did Trece, illustration for Trece. He did the illustration for a cover for the very first Buffy in Every Generation. And the slayer there was Babaylan.
Babaylan.
But it was a good twist. It's the monster is a manananggal and there's a babaylan, but there is a twist. So I will let you read it if you can. You can get it. You can get it on You can get it on Kindle. You can get it on Amazon. Pero it's the very first in Every Generation, and it's just a short story. It's like 6 panels lang, but it's so interesting. And it was Spanish times. So it's a very interesting.
Written by American.
I think a Filipino American.
Okay.
Every Generation comic, Buffy Philippines. Sorry, Google. Okay. It was Caggio did the cover. It was Boom Studios, written by
Sorry, curious lang.
I know. I don't have the. Let me Google it.
It's
on
okay.
my Amazon
Hanap ko yan.
history.
Hanap ko yan.
Oo.
Going back lang nga dun, when I was, again, nung tinatry ko isipin yung history ng aswang, if you think about it, medyo tragic because they sacrificed themselves to save the country. Diba?
Yes.
And if you think about the origins of Vlad the Impaler, he was undermanned. Parang ganun, diba? There was an invading force and they did not have enough troops. So he made a deal with the devil for powers as well. So parang, similar yun, like transformation, become a wolf, diba? Big dog, diba? So parang meron parallels lang when I think about it na parang, very interesting that there are.
There was this young adult novel when I was a young adult. Written by Christopher Pike, First Vampire.
I haven't heard it.
And it was about the first vampire in India, but like Indus Aryan tribe, so like the original white people. And it was a story about how this girl was attacked by demons and she was about to die. And so her best friend prayed Lord Krishna to summon a demon to take her friend's body, to possess her friend so that she would live.
Mm-mm.
And then that's how the first vampire was made.
Her friend became the vampire, tama no?
Her friend became the first vampire.
Yeah.
And then eventually her friend made her a vampire. So she's the one who's still like. No, sorry, it's the last vampire.
The last vampire.
Yung title, not the first one, Christopher Pike. And then it became a series, and then it's like a trilogy, and now you can get it's called The Thirst.
Christopher Pike.
So it's like and I love that I think we all grew up with a curiosity for it, but now we're hoping that the next generation will have more sources for Filipino specific mythology.
Specifically, your podcast is one.
One off.
Oo.
Ang dami ngayon. Ang daming shows, ang daming comics, ang daming
although we were shocked. Actually, we were shocked because recently there's this like students from like Benilde, I think.
Benilde.
And then they were reaching out to us because they were having, I think they have like a capstone project or a thesis on like Filipino mythology in like modern times or something. And they reached out to us as resources, and we were like, we literally started this like a year ago.
Sabihin lang ni Ice, pakilala kita kay Ambet. Teacher ko si Ambet.
Sabi niyo si Ambet ka.
Pero si Ambet ba merong parang wala sa mga articles niya parang walang inclination sa paranormal side, I mean sa spiritual side.
I think I've heard him mention it. No.
Mostly
But I love
more historical.
He's a great professor. He's very quirky. And like he's obsessed with like he loves telling stories of like national heroes.
Yes.
But he always tries to find like the human side of them. So si Rizaldo sobrang kuripot sa pera, pero sobrang addict sa loto. Like lagi daw siya nagtataya. Parang ganyan. So nagtitipid siya. So nagsusulat niya yung budget niya. Tapos nagtitipid siya sa lahat, pero magloloto
sa loto siya.
I think we also reference Ambet in his writings because like we said, diba? Like it's important to find the belief, but then also what was the world like at that time?
Yes.
Right? Like what was the context? Like who was in charge? What influences were you getting? And why did we need to do this? Like when we did the trickster episode, that it takes one to know one.
There is one episode that we really, really want to do, but we need to find good resources for it. We want to talk about Rizalistas.
Yes.
And how and why would you
dangerous, diba?
Dangerous.
Yeah. Would you kind of like deify?
I'll talk to my kuya. My brother did a documentary.
Yeah, but we have to be very
really?
On it. Sabi ni Ice, do you know where the tape is pa? Psycho. Number 1, video 8 pa yon. So, hindi
wala
ko
na
alam
tayong
kung
play.
paano natin mapanood din ng video 8, diba? Yun, nag-immerse to si Mart. Nag-immerse din yung kuya ko. Pero, I think it's important. It's dangerous because like...
It's sensitive because it's treated
alive.
Kind of as a religion. So
Oo,
you
it's
also
still alive.
you can kind of So it's hard, diba? Kasi parang a lot of people treat it as a extreme
A religion.
cult. Some
Yes,
people treat it as just like a religion. It's technically harmless, but there are aspects of it that are kind of like question mark, question mark.
Alam ko merong LNK practitioners na Rizalistas. Tama ba, Jeep? Hindi ko alam.
Yung mga sa Banahaw, some of them, kasi parang there's a statue of Rizal in one of the sides of Banahaw, and then it's a shrine basically. And they go there every Holy Week and they treat him like the Filipino Christ, ganon. So when I was there, medyo parang creepy nito because I can't speak out or anything. And then I can't say na parang I'm not Catholic or whatever because you have to follow.
Yeah. I've always wanted to go to Banahaw, but it's not very welcoming to women, isn't it?
Huh? Really?
Yeah, that's what my dad said. Kasi he, with Jamie Licauco generally always goes to Mount Banahaw for recharging agimats and stuff. And sabi ko, sama ko one time. Sana hindi ko alam kung hindi ata welcome ang mga babae sa Banahaw.
May mga nagkwento sa amin nakapunta naman. Pero depende yata ko sa ang lugar. Hindi ko lang alam. Pero may nagkwento sa amin na girl.
Yung says yung the women's cycle and you know how medyo patriarchal.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate.
Actually, hanggang ngayon nga, di ba? In certain temples, like even in Bali, if you're on your period, you can't go inside the temple.
Talaga?
If you're on your period because you're impure.
Hasidic Jews, you have to be in a different bedroom when you're on your period. A different bedroom. Hiwalay na bedroom. Gastos nun.
Diyos ko.
And in India, I mean, this was a campaign that we worked on in our old company. No, did you work on it? Yung Don't Touch the Pickle? Na pag sa India, there are tribes in India na pag may period ka, you can't cook. You can't touch the pickles. Can't touch, because you're unclean and whatever. Hello.
Grabe, no?
Grabe. Which is, again, I mean, for me, marami kami ni Ice na episodes na I would just, like, I can't speak for Ice's feelings, but I would just be so annoyed at, like,
the misogyny
and the power we used to have and the status that you used to have, which was not diminishing of a man's power, but it was just like, especially this whole Babaylan series that we're doing, it's just like, it was just as fact. And, sobra akong triggered. But also, like, we were trying to understand, bakit babae? Bakit hindi babae or lalaki? Bakit hindi ganyan? Sabi namin, well, there's just an inherent quality that we just have no understanding of because now we cannot not look at it from a Western lens.
Yeah.
But
remember our theory. So we have two theories. So one theory is that masculine energy is a bit more assertive. And feminine energy is a bit more like receptive. So
like this,
if you're
like
trying
my ling-ling
ling-ling, if you're trying to open up to a spirit,
receptive, you're receiving.
You're more receptive. But the other interpretation is a woman's body is a vehicle for bringing life into the world, right? Because you give birth and all of that. So is that why spirits are more, receptive to women? Parang ganon. So don't know.
Oo nga. Magandang question yan. Pero, again, from data, that's data, no? Pero yung basis on the people we've talked to, sabi ko nga, pinag-usapan namin nila GP to the other day, na karamihan ng sensitive na nakakakita or hindi naman necessarily lahat ng senses meron. Female or gay men. Kasi, marami. So, merong men na, straight men na who have the sensitivity, tinatawag ko the sensitivity, pero in general, it's mostly, again, female and...
But in general, like the men would have stronger feminine energy.
Not really. It's, a stronger male. So parang, sorry for the term, mas, ano bang tamang term? Malibog. Pag ganun, medyo may ganun ugali.
Sensual.
So, sensual? Sorry. Pero yun yung term. So, and basis ko lang is, ilan na basis natin doon, JP, na male? Tatlong nakausap namin na male na sensitive.
Medyo
may ganun.
You know what this reminds me of? Medyo campy. Yung sa Ghostbusters, yung Keymaster and the Gatekeeper.
Oh.
And then they have to
sa one ba to? Hindi ko na maalala.
Both.
Is it-
There's two.
Two. And in the recent
Uh-uh.
one, in Afterlife, it was the same thing. The gatekeeper.
Gozer and Zul.
Yeah.
No, Gozer was the god. Si Zul and I forget the other one.
Mm. Pero in general, yung in touch with feminine, the feminine side, yun yung mas, again, baka sometimes you do with that, with being, being empathetic, feeling ko, hindi ko alam eh. Hindi ko pa rin
I
alam.
don't know. Maybe it's maybe you're right. It's an openness and vulnerability na parang you're just not locked with the concerns of men. That's interesting.
Possible. Ayun.
Oo.
So, sorry, naka 3
siguro.
hours na tayo. Sorry.
Okay lang. Okay
Oo.
lang.
Oo.
Pero
Thank you,
gutom
thank
na
you.
ako. Baka kailangan ko na kumain.
Sige na, go na.
Kumain na ako dito. Nakita ako.
Nakita ko si Ice kumakain ako.
Okay.
Gutom na ako.
Go lang. Thank you ulit.
But it was super nice.
Ay, thank you then. Thank you.
Thank you also.
It was so much fun.
Thank you again, Anama and Ice, for taking the time to talk to us. Looking forward to hearing more episodes, especially yung request ko na episode. If you haven't yet, check out The Gods Must Be Crazy and listen to their episodes. I'll post a link in the show notes. The first thing I thought of when I heard the podcast title was Nick Sao. So I'm not sure if everyone will get that reference. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to ask that question to Anama and Ice. Thank you also to our past guests who hopped in the call, JP and Sam. In case you want to find out what their paranormal stories are, their personal paranormal stories, I'll post a link to their episodes in the show notes. They have their own strange stories and experiences to share. If this is the first episode you are listening to, hello! In the Paranormal Podcast, we get first-hand stories from people with real-life experiences with the paranormal. Mostly, of course, from a Philippine perspective, but there are times we have guests from different parts of the world as I tend to compare and contrast experiences and try to see similarities and differences in our folklore and actual experiences. I particularly want to see the connections between Irish folklore and Philippine folklore. The experiences shared range from human spirits, elementals, celestial beings, and cosmic entities. So if this is your cup of tea, you might want to subscribe and listen to all our past episodes. Each episode opens the curtain to the invisible world most of us cannot perceive. Most episodes are in Filipino. We do have a few English episodes, so I'll post a link to that in the show notes. If you have experience or information about local folklore and mythology that you'd like to share, you can email it to me at paranormalsph@gmail.com. If you want to share it via chat, you can join the Discord server of the podcast. The invite link will be in the show notes. So what is Discord? Discord is like a chat group, and I made this one specifically for people who want to explore and learn more about the paranormal. We have lots of chat rooms in that server that address different paranormal interests. You can choose which rooms to share your stories, theories, experiences. If you enjoy conversations about the paranormal with first-hand experiencers, you might consider subscribing to the podcast to get notification for new episodes. We are on Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook. New episodes come out every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Spotify, and Thursdays, 1:37 p.m. on YouTube. A big shout out and thanks to the Paranormal Patreons and Coffee supporters. Sunny, Jay, Z, Chris, Cal, B, and Leah. Many thanks for your support. For long-time listeners, mapapansin nyo, meron dyan mga constant na name. Si Sunny. Salamat, Sunny! Isa ka sa mga pioneer. Pioneer Patreons. Uy, parang pwede magandang classification yan. Pioneer Patreon. May special perks. Baka yung mga unpublished episodes. If you are interested in supporting us via Patreon or Coffee, I'll post the link in the show notes. There are different tiers of support on Patreon that gives you access to certain parts of the podcast process. And you can check it out in the link. If you want to support the podcast in other ways, you can always choose to share your favorite episode and send it to a like-minded friend. The Paranormal Podcast is engineered and produced by F90 Productions. Shares and reviews help support the podcast. You can go to your Spotify app and rate us, whatever rating you might want to give. And I think that will help us get seen by a wider audience. And I honestly believe that the more minds we open with the conversations we have, maybe the more accepting people will be to our unseen friends and maybe teach them to be kinder. Thank you everyone for listening. Please stay safe. LL Peeps, kamusta na LLers? Gaya ng karamihang LL portion, napapaisip na naman ako tungkol sa mga napapag-usapan sa podcast. Isa na dyan syempre yung madalas kong marinig na ma-mention ng ibang tao. Yung higher self. May maganda kasi akong analogy na naisip or na-connect para baka mas maintindihan natin. So, sa mga nag-games dyan, pag may nalaro kayong open world na RPG, tapos you can imagine na pinili nyo yung buhok, mata, ilong, baba, tenga ng character nyo. Tapos diba, technically pag naglalaro ka ng game, may free will ka gawin kung anong gusto mo. Gaya ko, ako ubusin ko lahat ng side quest. Hindi ko susundin muna yung mission. Liliko ako dito, liliko ako dyan, gagawin ko yun. Pero hindi ko muna gagawin yung mission points kung saan dapat tutuloy yung story. And, di ba, sige lang, wala namang papara sa'yo nun. Minsan, madami ka pa kinakaaway. Gusto mo lang makipag-away sa kalye, boom, makipag-away ka doon, di ba? Pero in the end, para matapos yung kwento, kailangan mo pa rin sundin yung storyline. Kailangan mo pa rin tamaan or gawin yung mga mission na nagtutuloy ng kwento para umabot ka sa ending nga. Kasi nakaprogram na nga yung ending ng story. Tapos, let's say for that particular game, may persona yung character mo. Diba? Parang ganun, diba? So, iba naman dyan, hindi lang syempre isang game ang nilalaro. Yung iba may mobile game, may console game, etc. Tapos, each game, yun nga, may persona ka. May ugali ka na sineset sa character na nilalaro mo. Sa mga nag-ML dyan, di ko alam ilang account yung meron kayo. May character ka na pinalakas na ganito lang yung ability. May character ka na pinalakas na iba yung ability. Iba yung playstyle mo rin, di ba? So, na-realize ko lang, sorry, ang babaw, pero para kasing yung concept yun ng higher self na there is a higher consciousness natin na namimili nung gusto niyang gawin. Pwedeng isang buhay lang ginagawa niya, pwedeng multiple, di ba? Para yung concept nga na merong life plan or whatever na okay, gusto kong maging cowboy sa US nung time na ganito. So, papasukin niya yung character na yun. Gusto ko maging present sa World War II sa Nazi side. Parang ganon. Gusto ko ma-experience yung feeling na yun. Parang ganon. So, parang yun yung inisip ko sa higher self na there is a higher consciousness that knows more about the character than the character itself. Tipong na-research mo yung moves, alam mo yung strengths and weaknesses ng character mo, pinaplan mo yung upgrade sa character mo, parang ganon. Pero yung character mo itself, hindi yun naman alam na nandyan ka. Parang ganon. Gets ba? Labo ba? Anyway, yun lang. Para na-connect ko lang. Feeling ko sa mga hindi gamers dyan, hindi nyo magigets. Sorry naman. Isip ako ng ibang analogy or baka merong mas magandang analogy nyo iba dyan, share nyo lang sa Discord para mas mag-get sa mga hindi gamer. Pero as a gamer, Nax feeling gamer. Pero as someone who plays games na ganyan, may open world, parang bigla ko lang na-connect na, parang ganun yung concept ng higher self. For me lang Hindi ko alam kung same mag-connect kayo with what I'm saying. Mas nakikita ko lang kasi yung connection talaga. Nakakaaliw lang yung parallels. Ayan, part 1 pa lang yan ng higher self. May isa ako naisip may napakinggan ako sa isang podcast about acquired savant syndrome. Explain ko yun later. Sige. Next week na lang. Ox, ingats.